Chapter 4984. Acting Deputy Island Lord. Nantian Aurora was stunned. That's right. After all, the will of heaven just left not long ago. If we give his position to someone else now, I'm afraid there will be criticism. However, it's reasonable if it's just the acting Deputy Island Lord. Wu Miao stroked her long beard with one hand and said confidently, "You are the Cultivator College's Deputy Dean and competed with the will of heaven for the position of Deputy Island Lord, so you are the best candidate. I believe the Island Lord Pavilion won't have any objections as long as I suggest it. Among them, only Chu Wendian is close to the will of heaven. However, he's gone, so I believe he won't be so stupid as to oppose me. Emichim. I also asked someone to investigate privately. Chu Wendian and the will of heaven only seem to be on good terms, but they don't have a deep relationship. After all, they are both influential figures. It's impossible for him to offend the Executive Deputy Island Lord for the sake of the East Continent's the will of heaven, unless he's out of his mind." Nantian Aurora nodded. "Don't worry about the others. The only person who might object to this is the acting Island Lord. Given his strength and background, if he says no, I'm afraid even I won't be able to help, Brother Nantian." Wu Miao frowned. After all, the acting Island Lord isn't the real Island Lord. Furthermore, he's new here, so I'm afraid he doesn't have as much authority as you, the Executive Deputy Island Lord. How can he have that much influence? Xing Dongxing couldn't help feeling puzzled. "Master Zheng, you might not know this, but even though he's the acting Island Lord, his strength and background are extraordinary. Vice Island Lords like us have no choice but to bow our heads and listen to him. To put it bluntly, the position of the Island Lord of Middle Island is very important to us, but that person doesn't necessarily care about it. He's just here to handle some errands. I don't think he'll agree to be the Island Lord of Middle Island for decades or even centuries," said Wu Miao with a bitter smile. "Could he be someone from one of those super aristocratic families?" Xing Dongxing was shocked. "That's right, and he's a member of the Middle Island Elder Council. We don't dare to ask too much about him, but we do know that he's from a powerful family. Otherwise, why would they give him the position of acting Island Lord without even giving us a chance to discuss it?" Wu Miao shook her head. As the managing Vice Island Lord, he had the highest chance of becoming the acting Island Lord. However, no one expected such a ruthless person to appear out of nowhere. Wu Miao and the other Vice Island Lords didn't even have a chance to do anything and could only obey orders. If that's the case, then it really depends on luck. Since he's someone from a super family, even I might not be able to speak to him. Xing Dongxing shook his head and sighed, not to mention him, the number 2 pill refiner of the Morning Star Academy, even the number 1 pill refiner, Qing Danzi, could not enter the eyes of the aristocratic families. What should we do? Nantian Aurora's heart sank. This was an extremely rare opportunity. He had to seize the position of Vice Island Lord while the will of heaven wasn't around. Otherwise, once the will of heaven returned, he would have nothing to do with it. Therefore, he was determined to get the position. Otherwise, why would he lower himself to fawn over Wu Miao? "Brother Nantian, you don't have to be so worried. I'm just saying that there's a possibility, but in reality, the possibility isn't high. The high and mighty acting Island Lord took office alone and didn't bring any trusted aides with him, so he probably won't be interested in the position of Vice Island Lord. After considering all aspects, Brother Nantian is the most suitable candidate. He has no reason to object, so the position of Vice Island Lord is very likely to go to you," Wu Miao said with a smile. After Nantian Aurora became the Vice Island Lord, he would have one more person on his side in the Island Lord Pavilion. Naturally, his authority would be greater. After he got rid of the remnants of the will of heaven's forces, the Island Lord Pavilion would be under his control, apart from the high and mighty acting Island Lord. If he encountered a suitable opportunity, He might even be able to dream about the position of Island Lord. This is great news. Let's get a Vice Island Lord first. After a few months, the word Vice Island Lord will be removed. It seems like we can call him Vice Island Lord Nantian in advance, Xing Dongxing said with a smile. Thank you, Master Zhang and Vice Island Lord Wu, for your support. I can't thank you enough and will never forget it. Nantian Aurora was overjoyed. He was originally a little uncertain, but after listening to Wu Miao's analysis, he immediately felt much more assured. Brother Nantian, we'll all be on the same side in the future. There's no need to be so courteous. As long as we cooperate sincerely, Central Island will be ours sooner or later, Wu Miao said ambitiously. Great. Vice Island Lord Wu is indeed someone who's going to break through to the magnate stage. Your ambition and boldness are indeed extraordinary. Xing Dongxing praised. Then he said, however, capable people have more work. You can't just focus on Vice D Nantian. We still need you to deal with Tiandan Pavilion. That's easy. It's just Tiandan Pavilion. I can get it with just a word, but... Wu Miao suddenly paused. But what? Tong Yangsua asked hurriedly. I heard that Tiandan Pavilion is related to the Pill Hall. Is that true, Vice Hall Master Zhang? Wu Miao looked at Xing Dongjue, who was silent. Ever since Xing Dongjue arrived, apart from greeting them at the beginning, he hadn't said a word. No one knew if it was because of his position or if he was pretending to be profound. Xing Dongjue nodded when he heard Wu Miao's question. It's true. Tiandan Pavilion's Tian Chan is a disciple of my Pill Hole. Not only that, but she's also my granddaughter-in-law. However, my grandson died young, so we're a little estranged. Everyone fell silent, especially Tong Yangsua, who was extremely embarrassed. They were actually discussing how to deal with Xing Dongjue's granddaughter-in-law in front of him. He was speechless and ashamed. No wonder Xing Dongjue had been silent all this while. Everyone, please don't misunderstand. Actually, I don't object to your plan to deal with the Heavenly Dan Pavilion. Although Tian Chan is the granddaughter-in-law of the Jing clan, she has been entangled with Lin Yi. She should have been taught a lesson a long time ago. It's just that as an elder, it's not appropriate for me to do it personally, Xing Dongjue clarified. Xing Dongjue was happy to see everyone plan to deal with Tiandan Pavilion. Previously, he didn't dare to force Tian Chan too much because of the Will of Heaven's deterrence. Now that the Will of Heaven was gone and they destroyed Tiandan Pavilion, he could naturally summon Tian Chan back to the Pill Hole. Xing Tianchu had been bothering him about this for the past 2 years, so he had been thinking about it for a long time. Chapter 4985. It wasn't just Wu Miao. Nantian Aurora also had the same doubts. Even if Xing Dongjue was Xing Dongxing's distant cousin, that was a completely different matter. Xing Dongjue couldn't possibly be in cahoots with the medicine sect just because of Xing Dongxing, right? Deputy Island Master Wu is indeed clever. To be honest, although you're helping the medicine sect in name, you're actually helping me. Xing Dongjue and Xing Dongxing looked at each other and smiled. What do you mean? Wu Miao and Nantian Aurora were still confused. When Tong Yangsua saw Xing Dongjue shooting him a look, he hurriedly explained, people have been speculating and criticizing the behind-the-scenes owner of the medicine sect, but we've never responded to them directly. However, Deputy Island Master Wu and Deputy Dean Nantian aren't outsiders, so there's no need to hide it. The behind-the-scenes owner of the medicine sect is right in front of us. It's the Jing family. There's actually such a thing. Wu Miao and Nantian Aurora were both shocked. This was quite a surprise. The Jing family had a 7th-grade alchemist like Xing Dongxing and Xing Dongjue, whose words carried enormous weight in the elixir hall. They didn't expect them to have a chamber of commerce as large as the medicine sect. They already had the shadow of a super aristocratic family. It's absolutely true. It's not good to announce this to the public, so I hope the two of you can keep this a secret for us. Xing Dongjue nodded. Of course. Wu Miao and Nantian Aurora nodded repeatedly. It was no wonder that a mere medicine sect could hire a 7th-grade alchemist like Jing Dongxing and put in so much effort to deal with the Tiandan Pavilion. It turned out that the medicine sect was their own business. However, this made them even more determined to befriend Jing Dongxing and Jing Dongjue. Given the scale of the Jing family, even if it wasn't a true super aristocratic family, it was still a powerful external aid that could be of great use in the future. The medicine sect is very important to the Jing family. We have to get rid of the Tiandan Pavilion. I'll leave it to you this time, Deputy Island Master Wu. Jing Dongjue cupped his fists. Leave it to me. Wait for my good news. Wu Miao nodded happily. Wu Miao was a swift and decisive person. She immediately sent a message to the Island Lord's Pavilion and mobilized a team of guards from Middle Island to charge toward Tiandan Pavilion. The street was in an uproar once again. In just one day, Tiandan Pavilion had become the center of attention for the 3rd time. The first 2 times were fine, but the 3rd time, Middle Island's guards had been alerted. Even Executive Deputy Island Lord Wu Miao had to make an appearance. This matter was getting out of hand. Since Lin Yi had opened up the sale of 7th-grade pills, not only did he put 5 7th-grade recover pills on display, but he also announced that he was accepting pre-orders for any type of 7th-grade pills. Therefore, Tiandan Pavilion was bursting with people. The small shop was packed to the brim with customers, and business was booming like never before. The shop couldn't handle so many customers at once. Not only did Sydney and Tian Chan personally attend to the business, but even Wei Shinjin was so busy that his feet barely touched the ground. As for Lin Yi, he went to the 5 Elements Commerce to look for Kai Zhongyang. Firstly, he wanted to check on Kai Zhongyang and Ho Guanqi. Secondly, he wanted to borrow some workers from Kai Zhongyang to deal with emergencies. Otherwise, Sydney and the others would die of exhaustion if they only relied on them. In the end, while Lin Yi went to the 5 Elements Commerce to ask for reinforcements, Wu Miao and her men arrived at Tiandan Pavilion. Middle Island's guards were all at least nascent soul cultivators, so the customers in Tiandan Pavilion couldn't stop them at all. The moment Wu Miao gave the order, they entered the Tiandan Pavilion in a single file. What are you doing? Wei Shinjin turned pale with fright. Tian Chan and Sydney's expressions also changed. The guards are handling a case. Unrelated people, get out. The captain of the guards shouted coldly. The guests squeezed into the Heavenly Dan Pavilion all scrambled to escape. The Heavenly Dan Pavilion immediately became empty. Only Tian Chan and the other 2 were surrounded in the middle. Handle a case. What case? Tian Chan quickly calmed down. She ignored the captain of the guards and frowned at Wu Miao, who was standing at the entrance. Tiandan Pavilion has always been doing business honestly. What crime did we commit to deserve such treatment? Doing business honestly. Wu Miao smiled when she heard this. She slowly walked to the display shelf in the center and picked up the latest 5-grade, 7-grade rejuvenating pills. She sneered. Should I say that you are ignorant and fearless, or should I say that you are extremely bold? How dare you sell grade 7 pills in such a big way? What an eye-opener. What do you mean? I'm just selling grade 7 pills. Is it illegal? Tian Chan, Sydney, and Wei Shinjin exchanged glances. They were confused. Humph. Of course it's not illegal to sell grade 7 pills. However, it's a heinous crime to sell pills smuggled from the East continent. Wu Miao's voice suddenly turned stern. Tiandan Pavilion is smuggling and selling grade 7 pills. The evidence is conclusive. From today onwards, Tiandan Pavilion will be sealed. All the grade 7 pills will be confiscated and reported to the East Continent. The moment she finished speaking, the guards acknowledged the order and were about to chase Tian Chan and the other two out of Tiandan Pavilion. Tian Chan, Sydney, and Wei Xinjin instantly panicked. Unlike Lin Yi, they had never been to the East Continent, and unlike Wu Miao, who was the executive vice island lord, they were not familiar with the rules. They had never heard of pill smuggling and were at a loss for what to do. The three of them were quickly pushed out of Tiandan Pavilion. Tian Chan and Sydney watched helplessly as the guards took out the police tape. Anxious, they hurriedly rushed forward to block the guards. What? How dare you defy the guards in broad daylight? Do you know what this means? Wu Miao glanced at the two women arrogantly and said calmly, obstructing the guards is equivalent to provoking the island lord. The guards have the right to kill you. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't make a mistake. Tian Chan was not as flustered as before. She retorted calmly, I would like to ask, how can you prove that this is a pill from the East Continent? If you can't prove it, then you're baseless. Even if you're the guards, you should at least have a good reason. There are so many people watching. Wu Miao could not help admiring Tian Chan. Most people would have run as far away as possible when faced with such a situation. She did not expect Tian Chan to have the guts to argue with them. There were many onlookers present, and if he couldn't give a reasonable reason, there would be all kinds of conspiracy theories, which would inevitably damage his image as Deputy Island Master Wu. He was still preparing to compete for the position of Island Master in the future, so he couldn't let such a small matter affect the public opinion. Chapter 4986. A moment later, Xing Dongxing appeared in Tiandan Pavilion. He could not help being stunned when he received the 5 grade 7 great rejuvenating pills from Wu Miao's hands. They were supreme grade pills. Although supreme grade pills were rare for 4th grade and 5th grade pills, they weren't that rare. However, these were grade 7 pills. Even Xing Dongxing had never refined a supreme grade pill before. Didn't this mean that the pill master behind this was far more capable than Xing Dongxing? Could it be the work of a profound grade pill master? Xing Dongxing muttered inwardly. However, after he sensed the pills, he was shocked to discover that they were clean. There was not a single trace of a divine sense imprint on them. How is it? Asked Wu Miao. There's no divine sense imprint on them. Xing Dongxing shook his head. There was no way he could lie about this. After all, these grade 7 great rejuvenating pills were confiscated as evidence. If Tiandan Pavilion made a fuss, they would have to get someone to examine them. There's no divine sense imprint. Wu Miao's expression changed. Wasn't this a slap to his face in front of everyone? If that's the case, there should be no reason to seal Tiandan Pavilion, right? Tian Chan and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Tiandan Pavilion was in great shape now. If it was sealed today, it would be a huge loss to them. On the contrary, high-grade medicinal pills sold through normal channels will never deliberately erase the divine sense imprint. Only those medicinal pills that cannot see the light of day will do so. So, you are being too clever for your own good. Xing Dongxing smiled coldly. You're slandering us. Tian Chan and the others flushed with anger. What's there to argue about? Get out of the way, or else we'll kill you, ordered Wu Miao. As soon as the order was given, a group of masters from the escort team quickly approached them. If Tian Chan and Shueli still did not give way, they would really kill them. Wei Xinjin hurriedly pulled the two girls aside and comforted them softly. They clearly came prepared. There's no use arguing with them. We can only wait for Boss Lin Yi to come back and think of a solution. Where there's life, there's hope. Although Tian Chan and Sydney were unwilling, they were not blinded by anger. They could only stand aside and watch helplessly as the other party put the seal on the door of their Tiandan pavilion. Retreat. Wu Miao and Jing Dongxing smiled at each other before they left with their men. Now that the Tiandan pavilion had been sealed, there was no point in competing with Medicine Sect. TSK, Tiandan pavilion is doomed. It wasn't easy for him to be so popular, but in the end, he was banned in less than half a day. How pitiful. The crowd nearby did not disperse. They were still whispering and pointing at each other. Yeah. Who told it to offend the Medicine Sect? They even managed to get Wu Miao, the managing deputy island owner, to help them. Who else could Tiandan Pavilion ask for help? At the end of the day, they were still too weak. Their foundation was insufficient. The strong preyed on the weak. This was fate. This day will come sooner or later, someone said with a sigh. What a pity. Let's not talk about anything else, but the quality of their elixirs is guaranteed, and the price is reasonable. If it were a big shop like the Medicine Sect, the price would at least double, and it would be impossible to buy a top-grade medicinal pill. Sigh. Someone sighed. Lin Yi finally arrived at this moment, late to the scene. Behind him were two employees who were borrowed from 5 Elements Commerce for emergencies. When they saw the conspicuous seal on the Tiandan Pavilion's door, they could not help but be slightly stunned. What's going on? Lin Yi found Tian Chan and the others and asked. The people from the Island Lord Pavilion said. Our 7th grade pills were smuggled from the East Continent, so they came to confiscate them. Even the 5 7th grade recover pills were taken away. Tian Chan and Sydney looked aggrieved. The person who just arrived is the managing deputy island owner, Wu Miao. However, the Medicine Sect must be behind this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to Tiandan Pavilion for no reason, added Wei Shinjin. Lin Yi nodded and did not say anything. He walked to the door and tore the seal without hesitation in front of the crowd. He turned and said loudly, Tiandan Pavilion will open for business as usual. If you need anything, you don't have to worry too much. You can come and visit as usual. Tiandan Pavilion will bear all the consequences. With that, he turned around and called out to Tian Chan and the others, smiling faintly, What are you guys spacing out for? I've even brought reinforcements. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get ready to open for business. Ha! Tian Chan and Sydney were stunned. They thought that Lin Yi would ask for help. Even though the will of heaven was not around, Kai Zhongyang, Ho Guanqi, and the others still had some connections in Middle Island. It would not be difficult for them to find a few big shots to help them. However, they did not expect that Lin Yi had no intention of doing that. Instead, he chose to ignore the seal. Boss, this is the seal from the Island Lord Pavilion. If we open for business without any regards, we will be in deep trouble. Wu Miao will definitely not let us off. Wei Shinjin hurriedly reminded them. Although it was bad that things had developed to this point, they had only sealed off the Tiandan Pavilion, so they would not be in any danger. However, if they openly disobeyed the Island Lord Pavilion's order, they might get killed. After all, from the standpoint of the Medicine Sect, they might not be willing to give up just because they had sealed up the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. This time, Lin Yi had publicly disobeyed the Island Lord's order, giving them an excuse to get rid of him. Just this reason alone was enough for Wu Miao to kill them all without hesitation. Lin Yi patted him on the shoulder and said faintly, You're wrong. This time, it's not about whether they'll let us go or not, it's about whether I'll let them go or not. Just wait and see. Ha! Wei Shinjin was completely dumbfounded. Wu Miao was the executive vice island lord and the second in command of Middle Island. How could Lin Yi deal with someone like her? Although Lin Yi was ridiculously strong and could send a mid-stage mysterious ascendant cultivator flying with a single kick, Wu Miao was different. Not only was he much stronger than Zhao Yukei, but he was also a troublesome figure. Zhao Yukei would not suffer any repercussions if he bullied him. However, if Lin Yi attacked Wu Miao, it would be equivalent to challenging the entire Island Lord Pavilion. The consequences would be unimaginable. Wei Shinjin wanted to remind them, but Lin Yi did not give him a chance. He had already left with Tian Chan, Sydney, and 2 helpers whom he had borrowed for emergencies. Chapter 4987. Wu Miao could only arrest Lin Yi and the others from Tiandan Pavilion. There was no way she could arrest the customers who were here to buy pills. Everyone knew that Tiandan Pavilion's pills were of high quality, which was why they wanted to buy as many pills as they could before Tiandan Pavilion was closed down again. If they missed this opportunity, it would be difficult for them to buy top-grade pills in the future. This is the last craze. Wei Shinjin sighed and broke out in cold sweat. However, he did not have the time to worry about it. If he did not hurry up and lend them a hand, Tian Chan and the others would not be able to handle the situation. The situation was too explosive. Even though Lin Yi had borrowed 2 employees, it was still far from enough. If this situation was not a flash in the pan, Tiandan Pavilion would have to start recruiting more people. Otherwise, they would really die of exhaustion. Unfortunately, this situation was destined to be a flash in the pan from the moment Lin Yi removed the seal. Less than an hour later, Wu Miao received the news and surrounded Tiandan Pavilion with her people again. Unrelated people, leave immediately. Otherwise, we'll kill you. Wu Miao's eyelids twitched when she saw this. She had just left, and this situation had already happened. Did these people not take her, the executive vice island lord, seriously? If a tiger doesn't show its might, they'll think it's a sick cat. Tiandan Pavilion was in chaos again, and the place was quickly cleared out. However, since Lin Yi was around this time, Tian Chan and Sydney did not panic as much as before. They believed that as long as Lin Yi was around, nothing would be a problem. According to our investigation, Tiandan Pavilion's Lin Yi, Tian Chan, Sydney, and Wei Shinjin went against the law and violated the island lord's order. Their crimes cannot be forgiven. Men, arrest them, ordered Wu Miao coldly. Wei Shinjin panicked. If they were arrested and sent to Middle Island's prison, the 4 of them would never see the light of day again. Even if someone came to their rescue, given Wu Miao and medicine sex methods, there was no way they wouldn't be able to do anything to Wu Miao. Unless there were powerful figures like the Will of Heaven, who could break into the prison, Wu Miao might secretly execute Kai Zhongyang and Ho Guanqi before they could even receive the news. Then, even if the Will of Heaven came back, he would not be able to do anything to Wu Miao. However, Lin Yi was not anxious at all. He glanced at the guards surrounding him nonchalantly before he looked at Wu Miao and sneered. "Are you sure you want to arrest me?" "Of course." Not only did Tiandan Pavilion violate the agreement between Middle Island and East Continent by smuggling and selling high-class pills, but they also violated the island lord's order. "Who else would I arrest if not you? Are you going to tell me that you are not from Tiandan Pavilion?" Wu Miao looked down at Lin Yi and the others condescendingly. "Of course I'm from the Heavenly Dan Pavilion. I created the Heavenly Dan Pavilion with my own hands. However, if you think you can catch me with just a few shrimp soldiers and crab generals, aren't you looking down on me too much?" Lin Yi didn't put the Middle Island guards in his eyes at all. It wasn't that he was arrogant. He was someone who could turn the East Continent's yellow steppe sea upside down. He was someone who could even defeat an early-stage mountain-opening magnate realm expert. It was simply too much for him to take a group of nascent soul experts seriously. Things were very different from the last time he came to Middle Island. Back then, Lin Yi was weak, so he could only tremble in fear. However, after going through a series of trials, especially after his trip to East Continent, he had become a formidable figure in Middle Island. Even if he wasn't a local tyrant, there was no way he would be intimidated by Wu Miao, the executive deputy island lord. Are you trying to resist arrest? Wu Miao instantly smiled. For someone who could easily defeat a mid-stage profound ascension expert, a group of nascent soul experts from Middle Island's guards would not be much of a threat. However, if he resisted arrest in public, he would be sentenced to death. They wouldn't even need to pin the blame on Lin Yi. They could just kill him on the spot. Even if the nascent soul experts from Middle Island's guards could not take down Lin Yi, Wu Miao was a late-stage profound ascension expert. If she couldn't even deal with an early-stage profound ascension expert, how could she be the executive deputy island lord? She might as well kill herself with a piece of tofu. So what if I'm resisting arrest? Lin Yi looked at Wu Miao calmly. Then don't blame me for being merciless. I'm just doing my job. I didn't want to kill anyone. After all, we don't know each other. However, if you want to die, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Wu Miao's lips curled into a sinister smile. Hee hee. Even if I want to die, you need to have the ability to make me do it, right? Lin Yi chuckled and glanced at him. He said disdainfully, do you think you can rely on these dogs and cats? Or do you think you're the executive deputy island lord who's at the peak of the late-stage profound ascension expert? I'm afraid it's hard to say who's the one who wants to die. How arrogant. Since you want to die so badly, I'll fulfill your wish. Wu Miao was utterly infuriated by Lin Yi's tone. It would make sense if this was said by a powerful cultivator in the mountain opening stage. However, this kid was only at the early stage profound ascension. Even if he could fight someone above his cultivation level, how strong could he be? Could he be more powerful than a powerful cultivator in the mountain opening stage? If Wu Miao had seen what happened at Lei Dong Plain Island in the East Continent, he would not have been so indifferent. Come to think of it, he was right. Although Lin Yi was only at the early stage profound ascension, he was able to fight someone in the early stage mountain opening stage. As soon as she finished speaking, Wu Miao made her move. Under normal circumstances, even the guards of Mid-Island couldn't fight on the streets. After all, if things went out of control, the merchant groups, and even the entirety of Mid-Island, would suffer huge losses. However, Wu Miao was confident that she could kill Lin Yi in one move. Naturally, she wouldn't suffer any losses. Water and fire dual attributes. Lin Yi was slightly surprised when he sensed the fluctuations of the essential qi in Wu Miao's body. Logically speaking, it was very difficult to make a breakthrough with just the two attributes of water and fire. After all, water and fire were incompatible. To be able to perfectly fuse the water attribute and fire attribute together to form the water and fire attribute, without exception, was not a simple person. No wonder he was able to climb to the position of Deputy Island Master. This person was indeed not an ordinary person. It was rumored that the water and fire dual attributes were unpredictable. Even the same move would have countless variations, making it very difficult to deal with. In terms of strength, he was comparable to an ascending spirit cultivator. This kind of expert at the peak of the late-stage profound ascension stage was even comparable to a perfected profound ascension cultivator. In Middle Island, where profound ascension cultivators were rare, Wu Miao had the right to be arrogant. Chapter 4988. Not bad, but it's a pity that you realized it too late. Wu Miao sneered. Her water and fire energy transformed into a striped tiger. The aura of a ferocious tiger descending the mountain struck fear into the hearts of the onlookers. The guards hurriedly retreated. Given their strength, it would be fatal if they were caught in the crossfire. Wu Miao's fierce tiger descends the mountain wasn't the first time they had been injured or crippled. They had learned their lesson, so they had to stay as far away from Wu Miao as possible. A tiger. It looks pretty impressive, but I don't know if it can defeat my dragon. Lin Yi smiled calmly. He casually sent out a 5 elements 8 trigrams murderous aura. Accompanied by a deep dragon roar, the 8 trigrams golden dragon descended on the tiny Tiandan pavilion. It was as if it came from an ancient beast, and the striped tiger stumbled back in fear. Qi transformed into a god. Wu Miao's eyelids twitched in fear. As the executive vice island lord of Middle Island, he was much more knowledgeable than the average person. He immediately saw through the essence of the 8 trigrams golden dragon. Even a late-stage mountain opening expert like Chang Minggui was shocked by it, let alone a peak late-stage mysterious ascension cultivator like him. Although the colorful tiger he created looked lifelike, it was only a special transformation ability of the water and fire elements. To put it bluntly, it was just a true qi in the shape of a tiger. It couldn't even be considered as a form of true qi, let alone a higher realm of true qi. Wu Miao's technique could only scare a layman. At best, it was just a poor version of qi transformed into a god. Who would have thought that Li Gui would encounter Li Kui today? The striped tiger relied on Wu Miao's qi to maintain its movements. Wu Miao was the one who had been scared off. However, the 8 trigrams golden dragon Lin Yi had created was different. It already had the aura of a real spirit beast. Lin Yi didn't need to control it at all. It could attack on its own. As the multicolored tiger retreated, the 8 trigrams flood dragon let out a dragon roar and pounced on it. With 2 dragon claws and a dragon tail, it easily tore the multicolored tiger into pieces. That wasn't the end of it. The 8 trigrams flood dragon wrapped itself around Wu Miao. Wu Miao nearly peed her pants when she heard the dragon's roar and sensed the ferocious beast's aura. A dignified profound ascension late-stage master was entangled by the 8 trigrams Jiao dragon. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not move at all. At this time, the only outcome was to wait for death. This result was really shocking. The guards and onlookers outside looked at each other in dismay. They didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. They were afraid of being targeted by the 8 trigrams flood dragon that had appeared out of nowhere. Even someone like Wu Miao was powerless against it, let alone small fries like them. What do you think? How's my dragon? Lin Yi walked up to Wu Miao and crossed his arms calmly. Since Lin Yi hadn't developed the 5 elements 8 trigrams killing aura for a long time, even he wasn't sure how powerful the 8 trigrams flood dragon was. The only time he had used it was when he fought Chang Minggui. However, the difference in their cultivation levels was too great, so the 8 trigrams flood dragon was easily destroyed as soon as it was released. It was hard to see its true power. However, Lin Yi could see some clues now. Judging from the 8 trigrams flood dragon's ability to easily crush Wu Miao, it should be able to easily deal with profound ascension experts in the perfected profound ascension realm. It should be able to go up against weaker early-stage mountain opening experts like Zhang Zili. In terms of lethality and explosive power, it might not be comparable to lightning burial. However, it didn't need to accumulate power and could be unleashed instantly. Moreover, it was very flexible. As long as Lin Yi was slightly distracted, he could work together with the 8 trigrams flood dragon to form a 2-on-1 fight. Lin Yi was secretly delighted by this conclusion. This was practically an advanced version of left and right mutual combat. If he had mastered this move when he fought Zhang Zili, he wouldn't have had to put in so much effort. He could have completely suppressed Zhang Zili, and he might not even have been able to fight back. Don't you dare. Ordinary people couldn't withstand the pressure of being surrounded by a ferocious beast. Wu Miao's voice was trembling, but she refused to back down in front of Lin Yi. She forced herself to remain calm and said, "I am the Executive Vice Island Master, Wu Miao. If you dare to touch me, you will be making an enemy of the entire island. Think about the consequences." "Really? I'm so scared." Lin Yi didn't take Wu Miao's threat to heart. He pursed his lips and said, "Is Middle Island owned by your family? Do you think you can do whatever you want?" Since you've chosen to be a lackey of the medicine sect, you should have this awareness. Since you dared to deal with me, you should naturally be prepared to be dealt with by me. Don't you think so? Wu Miao was speechless. Now, she really regretted agreeing to help medicine sect. She thought they were just insignificant characters, but she turned out to be a tough opponent. She was only in the early-stage mysterious ascension realm, but she was able to defeat her, a late-stage mysterious ascension expert, easily. Furthermore, she had used the legendary technique of transforming qi into spirit. Wu Miao wasn't a fool. She knew what this meant, and she knew that a mere Executive Vice Island Master like her couldn't handle this. She had been tricked by the Jing family this time. "I'll spare your life this time. I'll give you half a day to bring back my 5 grade, 7 great recover pills. It's fine if you can't do it. I'll go to your place myself, but things won't be so easy then." Lin Yi looked at Wu Miao and said calmly, "Remember, I don't have a good temper. I'll only let you go once." Wu Miao was so scared that she broke out in a cold sweat. She was elated to hear this. Although this person was scary, he didn't dare to provoke the Island Lord Pavilion. Otherwise, if he really became enemies with the entire island, what could he do? With that thought, Wu Miao's apprehension vanished. Her identity as the Executive Vice Island Master was her greatest protection. As long as Lin Yi didn't dare make an enemy out of Nakajima, she would be able to take him down for sure. After Lin Yi let go of the 8 trigrams dragon, Wu Miao immediately put on the airs of an Executive Vice Island Master. However, before he could say anything to save his face, Lin Yi slapped him without warning and sent him flying out of Tiandan Pavilion in front of everyone. Chapter 4989. Wu Miao was so ashamed that she wanted to die under everyone's gaze. She wanted to dig a hole and hide in it. She didn't dare to say anything else and hurriedly left with her guards. There was dead silence inside and outside of Tiandan Pavilion. Everyone looked at Lin Yi as if he was a monster. Diao Huanshan, who was in the late-stage nascent soul realm, came to cause trouble and was sent flying with a slap. Zhao Yuke, who was in the mid-stage mysterious ascension realm, came to cause trouble and was sent flying with a kick. Now, Wu Miao, who was in the late-stage mysterious ascension realm, was also sent flying with a slap. Where did this ruthless person come from? From the looks of it, he's going to be invincible on Middle Island. Even Wu Miao was defeated. Who else on Middle Island can be his match except the Island Lord? Someone whispered. Island Lord Pavilion, the only person who is more powerful than Wu Miao is probably the Island Lord. However, Middle Island is a place full of hidden talents. Setting aside the Island Lord Pavilion's elders, there are many hidden experts from the various sections. There should be quite a few people who are more powerful than Wu Miao. It's just that they usually don't show their faces, analyze someone. Let's not talk about those who don't show themselves. On the surface, this Lin Yi is definitely one of the top geniuses in our Middle Island. He came out of nowhere. Is he really from Dongzhou? Someone guessed. I don't think so. Why did I hear that Tiandan Pavilion is related to the North Island? Someone immediately retorted. The North Island? You must be joking. There are only a few experts on the North Island. I think the most famous one among the younger generation is called Gongyang or something. I've never heard of anyone called Lin Yi. Someone sneered. Pretending to be knowledgeable when you don't know. That's the history of the North Island. Have you been to the North Island in the past 2 years? Let me tell you. The most powerful person among the younger generation on the North Island is Ram Jia. However, the most famous person on the North Island in the past 2 years isn't Ram Jia. Instead, it's someone from the secular world. His name is Lin Yi, a middle-aged man said with a twitch of his lips. Really? Is this Lin Yi really from the North Island? By the way, Boss Chui, how do you know so much? Everyone looked over. I don't know if this Lin Yi is the same Lin Yi. But I was sent to the North Island to build a branch in the past 2 years. Of course, I know everything about the North Island. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, Boss Chui said with a smile. Everyone in the crowd was in awe of Lin Yi. No matter where an expert went, they would always be respected. However, Tian Chan, Sydney, and Wei Shinjin were all deeply worried and could not bring themselves to be happy. What if Wu Miao doesn't give up? Tian Chan and Sydney glanced at each other worriedly. Although Boss was scared shitless earlier, from what I know, Wu Miao has a gloomy personality. I don't think she'll hand over the grade 7 Great Rejuvenation pill obediently. She might even call for reinforcements. Wei Shinjin reminded them. Calling for reinforcements isn't a big deal. People who are kind will be bullied. Since they're already here, our only choice is to fight back. We can't give in at a time like this, not even a small step. Otherwise, they'll take a mile after we give them an inch, and Middle Island will no longer have a foothold. Lin Yi shook his head. Actually, he could tell that Wu Miao wasn't someone who could be easily intimidated. The only reason he had done this was to prepare for his upcoming counterattack. If Wu Miao continued to provoke him, he could kill her without hesitation. Even the Island Lord wouldn't be able to do anything about it. After all, he had already given in to the Island Lord Pavilion. If Wu Miao provoked him again, he would be the one who didn't know what was good for him. According to the rules of the cultivation world, Lin Yi could forgive him for killing him. If the Island Lord Pavilion deemed him as Middle Island's mortal enemy because of this, it would be inexcusable. But what if he finds the Island Lord of Middle Island again? Wei Shinjin was still a little worried. The Island Lord of Middle Island. Lin Yi thought back carefully. Last time when Tianqing and Nantian Aurora were fighting for the position of Vice Island Master, he had seen the Island Master of Middle Island from afar. Although he didn't see the other party make a move, he felt that this person's strength wasn't at an extreme level. At least the aura he released wasn't at a level that could shock the world. After his trip to the East Continent and meeting Zhuang Yifan, who was a late-stage Earth pioneering realm expert, Lin Yi's standards had become much higher. So what if the other party was the Island Lord of Middle Island? If he was as unreasonable as Wu Miao, Lin Yi could only use his fists to talk. Tian Chan and Sydney were not surprised by Lin Yi's nonchalant expression. However, Wei Shinjin could not help but smile bitterly. Not only was his boss powerful, but he was also ridiculously bold. If the next person to fight was the Island Lord of Middle Island and he was as unreasonable as Wu Miao, they would be in big trouble. Perhaps the entire power structure of Middle Island would change because of Lin Yi. Unfortunately, this was not a good thing for Lin Yi. So what if he defeated the Island Lord of Middle Island? Although the strong ruled Middle Island, it was not so chaotic that whoever defeated the Island Lord could dominate Middle Island. This kind of situation would only happen in the chaotic waters of the South Continent. It would never happen in the orderly Middle Island. If that happened, there would only be one outcome for Lin Yi. He would be hunted down by all the sects in Middle Island. No matter how powerful Lin Yi was, could he go against the entire Middle Island? This was clearly unrealistic. However, if Lin Yi could not defeat the Island Lord of Middle Island, he would definitely not end up well. After thinking about it, Wei Shinjin felt the only thing he could rely on was the Island Lord of Middle Island's character. He hoped that the Island Lord was not in cahoots with Wu Miao and the others. Otherwise, there would be no way out of this predicament. Sigh. It would be great if Elder Master Tian was here. With him around, there would not be so many problems. Even if it really came to this, at least someone would step in and deal with it. Wei Shinjin sighed. Things are unpredictable. Since Elder Master Tian is not here, we can only rely on ourselves to overcome this crisis. There is no other choice. Lin Yi glanced at Wei Shinjin and patted him on the shoulder. You have worked hard for the past 2 years. However, this has nothing to do with you. You don't have to face it with us. Ha! Wei Shinjin was stunned. To be honest, I'm not confident that I can overcome this crisis. However, it doesn't matter if I fall out with Middle Island in the end. At most, I will give up on Tiandan Pavilion and take Tian Chan and Sydney back to the North Island to seek refuge. No matter how powerful those people in Middle Island are, they won't dare to go to the North Island to catch me, right? Lin Yi smiled nonchalantly. Chapter 4990. In this way, even if he escaped back to North Island, he wouldn't be able to live in peace. Maybe Middle Island could make North Island his enemy. But now that he had learned something new, Middle Island's importance in Lin Yi's mind was getting weaker and weaker. On the contrary, North Island, who had always been mediocre, had a feeling that he was hiding his strength. At least North Island had Shanghai Tianhua, a name that could scare a lot of people in Dongzhou, which was full of masters. This. Wei Shinjin still didn't understand. You're different from us. The 3 of us aren't natives of Middle Island. It's not a problem for us to leave. At worst, we can wander around the world. But you can't. All your relatives and sect members are in Middle Island. You can't escape, so you can't follow us into this mess. If you can survive this storm, it won't be too late for you to come back and help me, Lin Yi said sincerely. Lin Yi never had the habit of tricking his own people. Since Wei Shinjin was his younger brother, and he had worked hard in the past 2 years, even if he didn't make any contributions, he naturally couldn't get him into trouble. Boss, what kind of person do you think I am? Wei Shinjin finally understood. His face turned red, and he said angrily, in your eyes, am I, Wei Shinjin, the kind of person who is greedy for life and afraid of death? This isn't called being greedy for life and afraid of death. A wise man won't make unnecessary sacrifices. You don't have to do this kind of meaningless stupid thing because of so-called loyalty. Lin Yi shook his head and sighed, don't worry, I'm not testing you. I really hope that you can hide for a while. Even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about your relatives and friends. Boss, I understand what you mean, but I actually don't have any relatives or friends in Middle Island, so you worry too much. No matter what, I won't leave. I won't leave even if you kill me. Wei Shinjin's expression was unprecedentedly serious and firm. Lin Yi was speechless. He could only look at Tian Chan and Sydney helplessly. Indeed, he didn't want to implicate Wei Shinjin, but since Wei Shinjin said so, what else could he do? Wu Miao came back in the evening. With her previous experience, the guests in Tiandan Pavilion automatically left the moment they saw him enter. They crowded outside and fought for a good spot to watch the show. Half a day, you're very punctual. Lin Yi looked at him and extended his hand, where's my level 7 recovery pill? Humph. Do you really think our Island Lord Pavilion is a pushover? Wu Miao forced a disdainful expression on her swollen face. So you're saying that you haven't learned your lesson? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes. It's not important whether I have a good memory or not. What's important is that you have to learn from now on. Before Lin Yi could make things difficult for her, Wu Miao turned to the person behind her and said respectfully, Island Lord, Lin Yi is the one who disrupted Middle Island's order. He did whatever he wanted just because he was powerful. Not only did he smuggle and sell East Continent's pills, but he also attacked his subordinates in public. He has no respect for Middle Island's authority. Island Lord, please punish him. As expected, it was Island Master Nakajima's turn to appear. Lin Yi, Tian Chan, and the others exchanged silent glances. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat when they saw a dignified middle-aged man walking out from behind Wu Miao. As expected of the owner of Middle Island. Just by standing there, he gave off an intimidating vibe. You injured the Executive Vice Island Lord and violated Middle Island's rules. Do you know your crime? Asked the middle-aged man coldly. His gaze landed on Lin Yi, and Lin Yi's shoulders sank. The immense pressure far exceeded Lin Yi's expectations. Lin Yi's face turned pale with fright. This was completely different from what he had expected. The middle-aged man was no mountain opening stage cultivator. His aura alone was on par with Zhuang Yifan's. In fact, Lin Yi felt like the middle-aged man was on par with Shanghai Tianhua and Ning Shangling. Since when did the owner of Middle Island become so terrifying? He was not this powerful the last time he saw him. However, Lin Yi soon realized that something was amiss. The person in front of him was not the owner of Middle Island. However, Wu Miao clearly addressed him as the owner of Middle Island. Did someone else change their owner in the past 2 years? Senior, are you the owner of Middle Island? Lin Yi took a deep breath and asked respectfully. Judging from the aura, the middle-aged man might be even more powerful than Zhuang Yifan. If they fought, Lin Yi would not stand a chance of winning, and he would not even be able to escape. He could only pin his hopes on the middle-aged man's character. My name is Okuda Zhou, and I'm the acting Island Lord of Middle Island. Since the official Island Lord is in seclusion, I'm temporarily acting as the Island Lord, said the dignified man. Acting Island Lord. Lin Yi was stunned. No wonder he was not the same person he had seen. However, why was the aura of this acting Island Lord so much more powerful than the official Island Lord? That did not make sense. However, Lin Yi naturally would not ask this question. He cupped his hands at Okuda Zhou and said, Since I'm acting as the Island Lord, I would like to ask you something. Can you distort the truth and ignore justice just because you have power? What do you mean by that? Weren't you the one who injured Deputy Island Lord Wu? Okuda Zhou narrowed his eyes, and the pressure on Lin Yi's shoulder intensified. It felt like it was going to crush him, and even Lin Yi found it difficult to breathe. This person's aura was so powerful. Lin Yi was secretly alarmed, but he maintained his composure. He said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, I was indeed the one who injured him, but I cannot accept the accusation that I challenged the rules of Middle Island. Unless Middle Island Lord is making trouble out of nothing, then I have nothing to say. Making trouble out of nothing. Okuda Zhou turned to glance at Wu Miao before he looked at Lin Yi with an unfathomable expression. Why don't you tell me what you're making trouble out of nothing? If you're telling the truth, I'll give you justice. Lin Yi relaxed when he heard this. Although Okuda Zhou's aura was powerful, he did not seem to be in cahoots with Wu Miao. Furthermore, he did not use his status to force Lin Yi to submit. Instead, he gave Lin Yi a chance to explain himself. This was very rare. If it had been someone else, they would not have bothered to say anything. They would have just said that Lin Yi was the Island Lord and attacked him. Why would they listen to him? They would not have specifically pointed out that Lin Yi was the acting Island Lord and explained so much. Chapter 4991. If he's really making trouble out of nothing, then it's only right for you to kill him. Okuda nodded faintly. This was indeed the unspoken rule of Heaven Stage Island. For example, if you went to another sect and behaved atrociously, then they could justifiably kill you, and even retaliate against your sect was a matter of course. Of course, Lin Yi's words were a little overboard when it came to shops. After all, shops were open for business. They were completely different from sects, which were purely private territories. It was a little alarmist to apply the sect's practices to shops, but the logic was similar. However, Okuda quickly added, but as far as I know, Vice Island Master Wu isn't making trouble out of nothing. He brought his men to seal Tiandan Pavilion because your Tiandan Pavilion smuggled and sold 7th-grade pills from the East Continent. According to the agreement between the East Continent and Middle Island, this is a serious crime. Lin Yi laughed when he heard that. This is a groundless accusation. Do you have any proof, Island Master Okuda? My surname is Okuda. Okuda frowned and corrected him. He then turned to look at Wu Miao. Vice Island Master Wu, since you're the one who exposed this matter, do you have any proof? Okuda. Lin Yi was stunned. This was the first time he had heard of this surname. However, he found it strange when he first heard about Okuda. Now that he heard about this unpopular surname, he suddenly thought of someone else. This was the only family with such an unpopular surname, even in the 5 great heavenly islands. Could it be? Of course I have proof. Wu Miao sneered and jumped out. She was holding the 5 7th-grade great rejuvenating pills confiscated from Tiandan Pavilion. She handed them to Okuda and said, Island Master Okuda, these are the pills that Tiandan Pavilion is selling. They are 7th-grade pills of the highest quality. If they weren't smuggled from the East Continent, where did they come from? That's right. To be able to refine a 7th-grade recover pill of such quality, even if he isn't a profound-grade alchemist, he must be one of the best 7th-grade alchemists. Logically speaking, it's hard to find an alchemist of this level outside of the East Continent. Okuda nodded. He believed Wu Miao's words a lot when he saw the pills because it made perfect sense. Even so, Okuda didn't jump to a conclusion. Common sense was common sense, but he had seen many things that were beyond common sense. Lin Yi was able to injure Wu Miao, who was in the late stage of the Profound Ascension realm, when he was only in the early stage of the Profound Ascension realm. That in itself was beyond common sense. Okuda Master is right, but there are exceptions to everything. It's hard to find a refiner like this outside of East Continent, but it doesn't mean that there aren't any. Grandmaster Zhang Liju isn't from East Continent, so even he can't make this pill? Lin Yi asked. Grandmaster Zhang Liju is a publicly acknowledged elixir god. Naturally, it's a different story. Are you trying to say that these pills came from Grandmaster Zhang Liju? Wu Miao mocked. She smiled coldly. Let's not talk about whether or not you have the ability to get Grandmaster Zhang Liju's pills. From what I know, it's been a long time since Grandmaster Zhang Liju made pills in Nakajima. Even if you really have the ability, why don't you have his consciousness imprint on these pills? Even high-level refiners had consciousness imprints. It was impossible for an elixir god like Zhang Liju to not have one. His consciousness imprint was widely known. Even people like Okuda and Wu Miao, who weren't refiners, could tell. Of course, they didn't need to do so in this case. There was no imprint on the pills at all. First of all, I never said that these pills came from Grandmaster Zhang Liju. That's what you're thinking. Of course, there's nothing you can do about your low IQ. But you can eat some retarded pills. Perhaps you can fight poison with poison, Lin Yi suggested with a serious face. You. Wu Miao's already swollen face contorted even more. How dare this guy mock her in front of Okuda? How dare he? She didn't know what retarded pills were, but she was sure that it wasn't anything good. Lin Yi ignored her and continued. Second, these pills don't have any consciousness imprints on them. Vice Island Master Wu, which eye of yours saw me smuggling them? Can't I make them myself? You? How is that possible? If you could make pills like this, would you still have your current identity? Wu Miao snorted. Then what identity should I have? I'd like to hear your opinion, Vice Island Master Wu, Lin Yi asked. If you could make a level 7 Great Huan pill, you'd be the head refiner of East Continent's Huangjia Academy. You wouldn't be running a small pill shop like this. Even if you're bluffing, can't you be a little more reliable? Do you really think you can fool me and Okuda with such a ridiculous lie? Wu Miao sneered. Okuda stood by the side without saying a word. However, it was clear from his suspicious gaze that his thoughts were similar to Wu Miao's. At the very least, the first half of Wu Miao's words sounded reasonable. However, Okuda didn't rule out the possibility of accidents, so he kept observing Lin Yi to see how Lin Yi would respond. You think it's ridiculous? Apart from the fact that you're short-sighted, there's nothing else you can say. Lin Yi glanced at him and sneered. Since you're willing to be a lackey for the medicine sect, you must have heard about me from Zhao UK, right? My identity is higher than you think. I already told you that I'm the master of Morning Star Academy's top pill refiner, Qing Danzi. Wu Miao sneered. Just as she was about to retort, Okuda suddenly said, Who can prove it? Lin Yi was delighted to hear that. The fact that Okuda asked this meant that he was seriously considering the possibility of what he said. At the very least, he wasn't like Wu Miao, who scoffed at his words. Okuda was reasonable, so it was no wonder he had such an imposing aura. It was easy for Lin Yi to prove this. He just needed to make another Supreme Grade 7th level Great Revitalizing Pill, and he'd be able to prove everything. But it wasn't that simple. Chapter 4992. However, Lin Yi relied on the godly pesticide cauldron to refine pills. How could he let outsiders see it? Hence, this method was definitely not going to work. Lin Yi pondered for a moment before he suddenly said, I have an elder brother at Middle Island. His warship just happened to be coming from the East Continent. He should still be docked there. You can ask him. Since he's your elder brother, how can we trust his words? Who knows if he's helping you lie? Wu Miao questioned anxiously. However, Okuda ignored her. He was slightly stunned when he heard what Lin Yi said. Oh. What warship? My elder brother's name is Okuda Ba. Coincidentally, his name is similar to the owner of Okuda Island. I'm the honorary vice captain of this warship, so he knows everything I'm doing in the East Continent, replied Lin Yi. Since you're the vice captain of his warship, of course he'll speak up for you. In the end, he doesn't have any concrete evidence, so he can only rely on a fake witness to confuse us. Do you think the owner of Okuda Island will believe you so easily? Wu Miao snorted disdainfully. She turned to Okuda and said, The owner of Okuda Island can't find a reliable witness, but I have one. Xing Dongxing, a 7th grade pill refiner hired by the medicine sect, is the second best pill refiner in the Morning Star Academy. However, he has never heard of Lin Yi before. This kid's words are all nonsense. He can't be trusted. However, Okuda glared at him coldly. Even though he didn't seem to be leaning towards Lin Yi, he was suddenly very displeased with Lin Yi's behavior. He snorted. Put down the pills and get lost with me. As for whether he's telling the truth or not, I'll find out once I ask him. Ha! Wu Miao was dumbfounded. She looked at Okuda in shock. What was going on? Wasn't this acting island master here to stand up for him? Why did he suddenly turn to Lin Yi? This brat had already clearly said that the captain had a close relationship with him. How could this kind of witness be trusted? Wu Miao's face turned bright red, but she didn't dare to question Okuda's words. Although she was the executive deputy island master and the other party was only the acting island master, the other party was a big shot from a super family. Whether it was in terms of strength or background, the other party was many times more powerful than her. Wu Miao didn't dare to question the other party to her face. Wu Miao wanted nothing more than to dig a hole in the ground and hide in the face of Lin Yi's smirk. However, he had no choice but to force himself to return the pill to Lin Yi in the face of Okuda's imposing aura. Luckily, he was thick-skinned. Most people would have covered their faces and fled long ago. Lin Yi took the pill and handed it to Tian Chan. He purposely said, "Check to see if these are the 5 pills we gave you. If someone is unscrupulous and replaced them with ordinary grade 7 great rejuvenating pills, we will suffer a huge loss." Wu Miao nearly vomited a mouthful of blood. If looks could kill, Lin Yi would have died 100 times by now. However, Okuda was standing right behind her. Unless Lin Yi agreed to inspect the pills, Wu Miao had no choice but to stay here. Otherwise, if Lin Yi turned around and made a false accusation, he would never be able to clear his name. But if it wasn't for Okuda's words, he would have kept the 5 level 7 great Huan pills for himself after this whole thing was over. After all, they were of the highest quality and couldn't be bought on the market. Lin Yi's words weren't wrong, but he didn't have the chance to do so yet. Finally, Tian Chan pretended to inspect the pills for a long time under the onlookers' watchful eyes. Wu Miao was on the verge of breaking down when he finally nodded and accepted the pills. Wu Miao felt as if he had been pardoned. He did not even wait for Okuda and hurriedly covered his face and fled. He was utterly humiliated as the executive vice island lord today. Lin Yi must die. Wu Miao's murderous intent surged as he fled. He had no intention of taking Lin Yi's life, but Lin Yi had humiliated him so much this time. In his rage, he was determined to kill Lin Yi. In contrast, the acting island lord, Okuda, had no intention of going back with him. He glanced meaningfully at Lin Yi before he left the Tiandan pavilion and headed straight for the docks on Middle Island. Arriving at the Middle Island pier, Okuda saw the ancient warship at a glance. It was impossible for such a behemoth to not attract attention when it appeared on Middle Island. After all, even the largest treasure ship on the side was several times smaller in front of it. It was in existence on a completely different level. It's really him. Okuda was delighted when he saw the special symbol on the warship's mast. He landed on the deck of the warship in a flash. Who's there? The crew members looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Since they docked on Middle Island without prior notice, Okuda had ordered his men to shut down all the formations to avoid any misunderstandings. Otherwise, they would be in big trouble if they accidentally fired their weapons. However, no one had expected that someone would dare to jump on the ancient warship without prior notice. Did he think that this was a cruise ship for sightseeing? In a short while, the crew members surrounded Okuda. No one who could stand firm on the ancient warship was a weakling. Most of them were experts that Okuda had recruited from the East Continent. If they went all out, they could even fight against those sections. With these people around, even if the ancient warship had shut down its formations, it would still be difficult to deal with. However, after they surrounded Okuda, none of them dared to act rashly. This person's imposing aura was simply too powerful. It was so powerful that they found it hard to breathe, let alone act rashly. Everyone, disperse. Even if all of you attack him together, you won't be a match for him. Don't go and die. Okuda's voice suddenly rang out from behind them. Third brother. Sure enough, it's you. How have you been all these years? Okuda's expressionless face suddenly had a hint of excitement. Third brother. The crew members were stunned. They looked back and forth between Okuda and Okuda with a strange gaze. Now that they looked at each other, they really did look a little alike. Go, go, go. 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 Do what you need to do. Are you looking for trouble by standing here? Okuda scolded everyone and then looked at Okuda with a wry smile. Second brother, how did you know that I'm here? He had told Lin Yi that he would soon leave Middle Island. The reason was that he really didn't want to have any contact with Okuda's family members. He didn't expect that Okuda would still come looking for him. Chapter 4993. Brother Lin Yi. Okuda Ba was stunned. He thought that it was his ancient worship that caused a commotion, which alerted his second brother, who was the acting island owner. He did not expect that it was because of Lin Yi. Yes, it seems that he did not lie. If not for him, I wouldn't have been able to see you. Okuda Zhou laughed. Lie? Why would I lie about this? Okuda Ba did not react for a moment, but then he thought that he had figured out the whole story. He slapped his thigh and said, how could I forget about this? With Brother Lin Yi's social circle, he would be personally received by President Zhuang of the Golden Step School Alliance in the East Continent. Since he has come to the Middle Island, it's naturally your turn to host a banquet. In the past few days, Okuda Ba had found out that his second brother, Okuda Zhou, was the acting island owner, so he prepared to slip away as soon as possible. What? This time, it was Okuda Zhou's turn to be stunned. He could not help but exclaim that Lin Yi actually has such a background and power in the East Continent that he needs Zhuang Yifan to personally receive him. Although in terms of strength, Okuda Zhou did not put Zhuang Yifan in his eyes, Zhuang Yifan was still one of the leading figures in the East Continent. He was the first official of the Golden Step Sea Alliance in the East Continent. It was rare for someone of such status to receive him personally. In particular, Lin Yi's strength was only at the early mysterious ascension realm, while Zhuang Yifan was at the late earth opening realm. With such a huge difference in strength, he was still on par with Zhuang Yifan. This meant that Lin Yi must have the ability to make up for this gap in other aspects, and that was alchemy. Just from Okuda Ba's words, Okuda Zhou could roughly confirm that Lin Yi said that he was the master of the chief alchemist of the Morning Star Academy, Qing Danzi. Although this sounded exaggerated, it was probably true. Brother Lin Yi does not have a particularly strong background in the East Continent. His background should be in the North and West Islands. As for why he can do well in the East Continent, it is because of his alchemy ability. Second brother, you see that he is young, but he is a mystic level 1 alchemist. Okuda Ba smiled with pride. Mystic rank 1st level alchemist. No wonder he was able to refine a 7th grade grand revitalizing pill, no wonder he was able to become Qing Danzi's master. I didn't expect him to be such a great character. Okuda Ashu couldn't help but sigh. Although he was impressed by Lin Yi's ability to challenge those of a higher level, but after all, the difference between their realms was too big. In this aspect, he only saw Lin Yi as a young junior who had more potential. But such a young mystic level 1 alchemist, his status was completely different. This was an existence that no one dared to approach in the East Continent's Mystic Sea region. Any mystic grade 1st level alchemist would undoubtedly be treated as a VIP if he went to any heaven grade island outside of the Eastern Continent, even Middle Island was no exception. Of course. Okuda Ba said as he glared at his subordinates. It was inappropriate for the two brothers to continue chatting on the deck, so he could only suggest, although this is Middle Island, since second brother has come to my worship, then you're a guest. I'll arrange a banquet. Let's talk while we eat. Okay, let's talk while we eat. Ever since third brother ran away from home, we haven't had a good meal together for a long time. Okuda Oshu readily agreed. As soon as he heard the word ran away from home, Okuda Ba's face suddenly became a little awkward. He could only laugh a few times and invited Okuda Oshu into the captain's exclusive private banquet hall. When the dishes and wine were served, Okuda Oshu and Okuda Ba reunited after a long time. They exchanged greetings and drank a few glasses of wine. The originally estranged relationship gradually became harmonious. After all, there was no estrangement between the two brothers. It was just that Okuda Ba's relationship with his family was a little tense. Third brother, since that Lin Yi is a mystic first-level alchemist, then how did he become your honorary vice-captain? Are you using this to rope in a mystic first-level alchemist? Okuda Oshu's attention was still on Lin Yi. Second brother, you're an amateur. I'm a captain who roams the seas. Why would I spend so much effort to rope in an alchemist? Even if he's a mystic first-level alchemist, it's not beneficial to my warship at all. He's not even as useful as an ordinary array master. Okuda Ba said disapprovingly. Then why are you still brothers with him, and even let him be your honorary vice-captain? Okuda Oshu asked curiously. This is a long story. When I tried to rope him in, I only heard that his alchemy ability was not bad. I didn't even know that he was a mystic first-level alchemist. Okuda Ba shook his head and then laughed. Second brother, you should know that I'm a person with high standards. Ordinary people can't enter my eyes, but this brother Lin Yi is definitely not ordinary. Oh. Other than being able to challenge higher levels and being a mystic first-level alchemist, does he have something special? Okuda Oshu asked curiously. Although these two things were already very exaggerated in the eyes of ordinary people, it was obviously not in this aspect that Okuda Ba was interested in. He's the most talented navigator I've ever seen. Okuda Ba's eyes lit up. Seeing that Okuda Oshu was still confused, he said, Second brother, have you heard of sea dragons? Of course, how could I not have heard of the existence closest to the king of the sea? Okuda Oshu paused and suddenly said in surprise, Third brother, you're not going to tell me that you met a sea dragon, are you? That's right. At that time, I was carrying the students of 2 academies in the East Continent from the West Island. In the end, I was attacked by a group of super sea beasts. There were 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, and countless mystic ascending and nascent soul stage sea beasts. The scariest thing was the mastermind behind this group of sea beasts. Every time Okuda Ba talked about this, his eyes lit up with excitement. After all, this was the first time in his 300 years in the sea. For a man like him who was determined to conquer the endless sea, it was hard not to be excited. It's really a sea dragon. This time even Okuda Zhou's voice changed. Chapter 4994. According to what you said, this Lin Yi is really unusual. Osamu took a deep breath. Although he didn't want Okuda to roam the sea all year round, he knew very well what Lin Yi's ability represented. Using the title of honorary vice-captain to rope in such a person was definitely a good deal. It's a shame that this brother of mine is just too much of a genius. He has too many different abilities, and he doesn't have the heart to travel in the ocean. How great would it be if he didn't know how to concoct pills and only knew how to sail? What a waste. Okuda sighed. Recklessly wasting natural resources. Osamu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He pointed at Osamu and scolded. He, an early-stage profound ascension cultivator, could easily deal with a peak late-stage profound ascension cultivator, and he's also a profound first-level alchemist. If he went sailing with you, it would really be a waste. The sea is where a man belongs, how is it a waste? Osamu wasn't convinced. I haven't seen you for so many years and you're still like this. You've been like this since you were young. You're obviously more talented than me, but you've only liked to go on adventures since you were young. You've never been willing to cultivate properly. For this, you didn't even hesitate to fall out with your family, and in the end, you ran away from home. Osamu couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Our Okuda family is one of the few super families on Heaven Stage Island, but in the end, we have a third young master who doesn't do proper work. I really don't know what to say. Second brother, why are you talking about this? Osamu's face suddenly darkened. After running away from home, although he relied on his own strength to make a name for himself, he still couldn't get his father's approval. Other than his second brother, Osamu, everyone in the Okuda family always looked at him with a look of disdain. As time passed, he didn't want to have any contact with his family anymore. Third brother, I know you don't want to hear this, but as your second brother, I have to say it. Although father doesn't want to forgive you, he wants you to go back more than anyone else. You should know that your room is still in the ancestral home, and it's still the same as before you left. No matter who goes in and messes with it, father will be angry. Okuda sighed. Hearing this, Okuda fell silent. Sometimes, after drifting in the endless sea for a long time, he would occasionally have the urge to return to his family, but every time, he would quickly kill that urge. One day, he would rely on his own strength to achieve great things that would make his father sit up and take notice of him. This was the belief he had set since the day he ran away from home, and it had never changed. No matter what, you're still the third young master of the Okuda family. Since you've come to Nakajima, go back and take a look, Okuda said expectantly. Second brother, it's not like you don't know my ambition. Don't try to persuade me anymore. I'm going out to sea tomorrow. Let's get drunk tonight. Okuda shook his head. But Okuda still wanted to persuade him. Okuda waved his hand and interrupted him, saying with a heroic smile, Second brother, do you know what I'm going to do now? Just a warship is not enough to satisfy my appetite. I want to become the commander of a fleet that can sweep through Heaven Stage Island, not just a simple captain. You want to build a fleet? Okuda was startled by his crazy idea. Treasure ships were rare enough, and ancient warships were even rarer. Even with the Okuda family's foundation, they wouldn't dare to boast like this. Okuda's goal was really ambitious. That's right. This is my goal. When I succeed, I will naturally return home. Okuda nodded. Seeing the unshakable determination in his eyes, Okuda hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he didn't try to persuade him anymore. He nodded and said, I'll wait for the day you return home. Just you wait. Okuda laughed and suddenly changed the topic. Right, from what second brother said just now, did brother Lin run into some trouble? And you can say that, but it's just a small problem. Just say the word, and I will deal with it. Okuda nodded. Second brother, I have to remind you that this kid is not a small matter. Even from the perspective of the family, he is worth befriending. Do not rashly become enemies with him. Okuda said in a serious tone. Don't worry, I know what's important. Okuda nodded. No matter what, Okuda was a descendant of the Okuda family. Moreover, he had roamed the seas for 300 years, so his vision was naturally good. Since even he respected such a character, he naturally had to befriend him. The two brothers reunited after a long time. They drank from dawn to dusk, and then from dusk to dawn. Only then did Okuda send Okuda off in a drunken state. The wine they drank was 100-year-old wine made from supreme-grade spiritual herbs, so the after-effects were unimaginably strong. Fortunately, they cheated and dissolved most of the alcohol. Otherwise, even 10 Okudas would have passed out. In comparison, Okuda Zhou was more relaxed when he left. He was much stronger than Okuda Ba, so even if he did not cheat, he could easily dissolve the alcohol by circulating his essential qi in his body. He was the true definition of being able to drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk. Ever since Wu Miao came back from the Tiandan Pavilion yesterday, he had been guarding the Island Lord's pavilion. He wished he could get someone to throw Lin Yi in jail and torture him. Unfortunately, he could only fantasize about it. Putting aside the fact that he did not have the strength to do so, even if he found someone who could deal with Lin Yi, he did not dare to act rashly before Okuda Zhou came to a conclusion. After all, it was not a big deal to offend Lin Yi. However, if he offended Okuda Zhou, his days would come to an end. Wu Miao paced back and forth in Hall 2, the Executive Vice Island Lord's personal residence. From time to time, he would send someone to Hall 1 to gather information. Okuda Zhou's attitude the day before made him feel uneasy. Although he did not think Okuda Zhou would offend him, an Executive Vice Island Lord, for an outsider like Lin Yi, what if he did? Since Okuda hadn't returned all night, Wu Miao had been on tenterhooks the entire night. When her subordinate told her that Okuda was back in the morning, Wu Miao couldn't wait to go and ask him about it. However, before he could leave Hall 2, Wu Miao turned back. If he went to Okuda Zhou and asked him about it, wouldn't it make it seem like he was eager to deal with Lin Yi? Although Wu Miao did have this thought, he could not make it so obvious since he was the second in command. Otherwise, Okuda Zhou would definitely look down on him. After thinking about it, Wu Miao sent one of his trusted subordinates to gather information. In the end, he came back in less than 15 minutes with a document from the Island Lord. "How did it go?" asked Wu Miao hurriedly. Chapter 4995. You want me to read it personally? Wu Miao was slightly stunned and did not notice the strange expression on his trusted aide's face. She was secretly delighted. Although Okuda was a descendant of a powerful family, he knew how to conduct himself. He knew that Wu Miao had lost face at Tiandan Pavilion yesterday, so he was giving her a chance to get back at him. However, Wu Miao's expression instantly changed when he opened the document. It was hard to imagine that one person could have so many expressions on his face at the same time. His face was so ugly that it looked like a giant dye vat. According to our investigation, the pills from Tiandan Pavilion were not smuggled. They came from outside East Continent through normal channels. With immediate effect, Tiandan Pavilion's reputation will be restored. Executive Vice Island Lord Wu Miao will solemnly apologize for his previous misjudgment. Wu Miao was speechless for a long time as she read the island owner's letter. What happened at the Heavenly Pill Pavilion yesterday already made her feel humiliated, but now, the island owner's letter was like a slap to her face. Okuda had specifically asked her to read it at the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Even if they wanted to slap her, they couldn't be so merciless. Isn't he just an acting island lord? How dare he? Wu Miao cursed after dismissing his trusted aide. Of course, he only dared to curse in private. He did not even dare to voice his complaints in front of his trusted aide, let alone in front of Okuda himself. Not only did Wu Miao not dare to scold him to his face, but she didn't even have the courage to go to Okuda to argue with him. She was a high-ranking official, and this high-ranking official had a powerful background. What could he do even if he gritted his teeth in anger? Although Wu Miao did not dare to argue with Okuda, he could not resign himself to his fate. Going to Tiandan Pavilion to read the document was worse than death. There was no way he would do that. After thinking about it, he only had one choice. He went to Medicine Sect to look for Jing Dongxing. Vice Island Lord Wu, how did it go? Asked Jing Dongxing. Apart from him, Jing Dongjue, Southern Sky Aurora, and Tong Yangsuo were also present. These people were all jackals of the same tribe. Now that they had banded together because of their own interests, they naturally had to strike while the iron was hot and build up their relationship. They had to take this opportunity to understand each other's background clearly. Otherwise, how could they work together in the future with confidence? Wu Miao couldn't help blushing. He had confidently said that it would be a small matter, but things had turned out this way. Not only had he been humiliated by Lin Yi in front of everyone, but Okuda had also forced him into a corner. He was too ashamed to face Xing Dongxing and the others. However, he had no other choice. He had to come. If he told the truth, at least everyone could think of a solution. If he just gave up, not only would he lose face, he would also have to complain in front of Xing Dongxing and the others. The loss would really be immeasurable. He was still counting on Xing Dongxing to help him concoct pills. Ah! Wu Miao hesitated a little in embarrassment. In the end, she bit the bullet and said, Tiandan Pavilion is unfathomable. Unfathomable. Xing Dongxing and the others were stunned. They had sent people to keep an eye on Tiandan Pavilion, so they knew what had happened yesterday. Rather than saying Tiandan Pavilion was unfathomable, it would be more accurate to say that Lin Yi was unfathomable. An early-stage profound ascension expert that even Wu Miao couldn't defeat was truly shocking. Even with Deputy Island Lord Wu's connections, you can't find an expert who can defeat Lin Yi. Xing Dongjue couldn't help but feel a little strange. He looked at Wu Miao meaningfully and said, based on what I know, even if the Island Lord Pavilion doesn't alert the Middle Island elders, they shouldn't be unable to deal with Lin Yi, right? Xing Dongxing and the others also looked at Lin Yi suspiciously. The current Lin Yi was indeed unstoppable, but it was absolutely impossible to say that even the Island Lord Pavilion was helpless. Even if the official strength of Middle Island wasn't as outstanding as the other Sky Islands, it wasn't weak to this extent. Of course the Island Lord Pavilion can deal with Lin Yi. The problem is that the acting Island Lord must have gone crazy. He was supposed to stand up for me, but after he arrived at Tiandan Pavilion, he asked me to return the pills and said that he would personally investigate the matter. Then, he gave me this today. Wu Miao handed the document to Xing Dongxing and the others with a bitter expression. They looked at each other in dismay. Xing Dongxing couldn't help frowning. Didn't you say that the acting Island Lord is from a super aristocratic family? He shouldn't have anything to do with Tiandan Pavilion, right? Why is he so biased? I don't know the specifics, but I think he went to see one of Lin Yi's older brothers. After he came back, he didn't say anything. Instead, he gave me this document. Wu Miao smiled helplessly. Went to see Lin Yi's older brother. Isn't he clearly biased? Xing Dongxing and the others frowned even more. That's right. That's why I have no choice but to discuss this with you and see if you can come up with a proper solution. I can only delay this document for half a day at most. If I can't come up with a solution, I, as the Executive Vice Island Lord, will have no choice but to follow orders. If that happens, there will be no turning back. Wu Miao sighed. In order to maintain their prestige, the Island Master Pavilion's actions were most taboo to change their orders constantly. Once this Island Master's document was announced, it had already been changed once. From then on, it had become a final conclusion. Even if this matter was sealed in the coffin, it could no longer be changed. Xing Dongxing and the others fell silent. They looked at each other in confusion. Although they were all shrewd people, they couldn't think of a solution. At the end of the day, they didn't have any solid evidence to prove that Tiandan Pavilion was smuggling pills. The fact that they didn't have a divine sense imprint could only be used as an inference. If they investigated further, it wouldn't hold water. After remaining silent for a long time, Xing Dongxing finally said, Tiandan Pavilion is a huge threat to medicine sect. It's not a big deal to take a step back, but if they take advantage of this opportunity, they will suffer. The consequences will be unimaginable. We have to kill them this time. But this is Island Lord Okuda's will. Even I can't disobey him. Wu Miao shook her head helplessly. Since the root of the problem lies with Island Lord Okuda, I can only go to the Island Lord Pavilion personally and talk to him, said Jing Dongxing in a deep voice. Although the other party's strength and background left him in the dust, he was still a 7th-grade pill refiner from the East Continent. No matter where he went, he had some status. Even if he went to the Island Lord Pavilion in Middle Island, he would be treated as a VIP. Chapter 4996. Since Xing Dongxing and Wu Miao said so, Xing Dongjue, Nantian Aurora, and Tong Yangsuo had no objections. None of them had the right to reason with Okuda, so Xing Dongxing was the only one who could. Xing Dongxing went to the Island Lord Pavilion with Wu Miao. He went straight to Hall 1 and found Okuda. May I know why you're here, Master Xing? Okuda gestured for them to take a seat. If it was his original identity, he wouldn't have to be so polite to a 7th-grade pill refiner. He would have been more like a black-grade pill refiner, but he was the acting Island Lord now, so he couldn't mistreat his guests. Island Lord Okuda, I know quite a bit about what happened at Tiandan Pavilion. I heard that you believe that the 7th-grade pills at Tiandan Pavilion came from legal sources. Xing Dongxing went straight to the point. That's right. That's true. Okuda glanced at Wu Miao and nodded calmly. Island Lord Okuda, do you have any evidence? Asked Xing Dongxing. Evidence? Okuda suddenly smiled. He asked instead of answering the question, Master Xing, are you trying to say that the pills at Tiandan Pavilion came from the East Continent? Do you have any evidence? I can only prove someone's guilt with evidence. On the other hand, if someone is innocent, I don't need an innocent person to prove his innocence. I have tested the 5 7th-grade Great Recovery pills at Tiandan Pavilion. They are all supreme-grade pills, so it's very unlikely that they came from other heaven-grade islands. It can only come from the East Continent. Furthermore, the pills don't have any divine sense imprints on them. That's the best evidence. Even if it's not solid evidence, you can come to a conclusion based on common sense, right? Xing Dongxing said confidently. You want to convict someone based on common sense? Master Zheng, do you think I'm that naive? My island has always been a gathering place for large chambers of commerce. If I'm the first to do something like this, won't all the other chambers of commerce have to close down? There are many things in this world that can't be explained with common sense. Master Zheng, you don't have to make a fuss about it, retorted Okuda calmly. Make a fuss about it. When Xing Dongxing heard this, his face suddenly became a little ugly. He looked straight at Okuda and said, with such conclusive evidence, Island Master Okuda actually thinks that I'm making a fuss over nothing. Originally, I came to Middle Island from afar, and as a guest, I shouldn't meddle in this kind of business. However, the Tiandan Pavilion's Lin Yi claimed to be the master of my Morning Star Academy's chief alchemist, Qing Danzi, so I can't stay out of this matter. I hope that Island Master Okuda can handle this matter impartially and not play favoritism. Is Master Xing threatening me? Okuda didn't show any signs of anger, but after he said that, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly became solemn. The omnipresent dignified aura pressed down on Xing Dongxing and Wu Miao, and they suddenly couldn't sit still. However, Xing Dongxing wasn't an ordinary person. Although he felt uncomfortable under the pressure, he forcefully endured it and said with an ugly expression, Island Master Okuda, please don't misunderstand me. I'm just speaking out of fairness. I don't mean to threaten you at all. However, this matter concerns the reputation of my Morning Star Academy. If Island Master Okuda can't clarify this matter, I can only report it to the East Continent and ask the East Continent Academy to punish Middle Island. Saying this, it was a complete threat, and it was a direct threat to the entire Middle Island. The sanction that Jing Dongxing mentioned was not a joke. It was related to the disciple quota that the East Continent College allocated to Nakajima. Even if Okuda came from a super aristocratic family, they still had to send their disciples to the East Continent for further studies. Once they were really sanctioned by the East Continent, his family and Nakajima would suffer a huge loss. No one could afford this result, and Okuda was no exception. If he hadn't met his third brother, Okuda might have hesitated when faced with Jing Dongxing's threat. However, now that he knew how powerful Lin Yi was, his words were like a joke to him. "Who are you reporting to?" Okuda asked indifferently. "The Morning Star Academy, of course. I'll report it to the East Continent's Golden Step Academy Alliance. If Middle Island doesn't do anything about this matter, which is obviously ruining the reputation of our academy, I believe that sanctions will be unavoidable. I hope Island Master Okuda won't make a mistake," Jing Dongxing said with a smug expression. Originally, he didn't dare to say this, but since he had brought up the East Continent's name, he naturally felt superior to Middle Island. So what if Okuda was from the East Continent? He still had to act according to the East Continent Academy's wishes. "Alright, you can go now." Okuda immediately raised his glass to send him off. "Ha!" Jing Dongxing was dumbfounded. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. It wasn't until he saw Wu Miao's expression that he confirmed that he hadn't misheard Okuda. Did he take the wrong medicine? Why didn't Okuda listen to him? Jing Dongxing looked at Okuda in disbelief. Usually, he would use this to threaten the people of the Heaven Stage Island, and it had always worked. How come this guy didn't seem to care at all? Could it be that the super aristocratic families were so powerful that they didn't even put the East Continent Academy in their eyes? What? Do the two of you want to stay for a cup of tea? Okuda looked at them with an ambiguous smile. Wu Miao's head was about to sink into her pants. If she had known that Jing Dongxing was so unreasonable, she wouldn't have dared to come with him. Now, not only did Okuda not listen to him, but he even blacklisted her. She wouldn't have a good time in the Island Lord Pavilion in the future. "Master Okuda, I've already made myself very clear. We've never met before, and we have no grudges against each other. Why do you have to put yourself in this situation for an irrelevant person like Lin Yi? I'll say the ugly words first. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit." Jing Dongxing was furious. A high-ranking alchemist like him was very prideful. After all, this was the culture on Heaven Island. He wouldn't be used to people not supporting him. Now that Okuda had given him such a cold shoulder, it would be strange if he wasn't angry. If it weren't for the fact that the acting island lord was concerned about Nakajima's image, Okuda would have slapped Jing Dongxing to death. He was just a 7th grade alchemist. Did he really think he was someone important? However, at Okuda's level, he had already cultivated his temperament to the point that it was almost impossible for him to be angered in public. He calmly waved his hand and said, "Do whatever you want." "Fine. You said it." Jing Dongxing was so angry that he flicked his sleeves and stormed off. Wu Miao apologized to Okuda awkwardly before she hurriedly chased after Jing Dongxing and accompanied him to the Executive Island Lord's private room number 2. Chapter 4997. Not only did the letter exaggerate and accuse Tiandan Pavilion of smuggling pills, but it also described Lin Yi as a swindler who ruined the Academy's reputation. In the end, it pointed the finger at Okuda Prefecture and accused them of covering up for Lin Yi and destroying the important agreement between East Continent and Middle Island. That was a heinous crime. Now that things had developed to this point, Jing Dongxing no longer hated Lin Yi the most. He hated Okuda Prefecture for making him lose face. Now, He even wanted to take down the acting island owner who had looked down on him. Will this work? Wu Miao could not help but gulp when she read the letter. You can remove the word will. This time, not only will Lin Yi and Tiandan Pavilion suffer, but even your arrogant acting island owner will suffer. Xing Dongxing read the letter confidently. In the end, he picked up his pen and added a sentence. He wanted the academy to hand the letter to Zhuang Yifan. After all, Xing Dongxing was a 7th grade pill refiner. His status meant that he had the right to speak. Xing Dongxing was considered a top figure in East Continent's yellow-class waters, so he had a say in front of Zhuang Yifan. Of course, whether Zhuang Yifan would take his words seriously was another matter. At the very least, Xing Dongxing had a good impression of himself. Okay. Let's return to the medicine sect and send the letter through their channels. Although Wu Miao had been terrified for a long time, she was a little excited now. If Xing Dongxing's words were true, and Okuda Prefecture was in trouble, wouldn't he be able to dream about becoming the acting island owner? There's no need for that. We'll use the island owner's official channels, said Xing Dongxing as he shook his head. I don't think that's a good idea. Okuda Prefecture will definitely be alerted if we use the island owner's official channels. What if he sees it? Wu Miao recalled the embellished accusations in the letter and could not help feeling a little guilty. If Okuda Prefecture saw it, he might fly into a rage and do something bad. I want him to see it. If he knows what's good for him, I'll let this matter rest. But if he refuses to do it the hard way, then he can't blame me. Even if he's from a powerful family, I don't believe he will look down on East Continent Academy, said Xing Dongxing with a sinister look on his face. All right. Wu Miao hesitated for a moment before she followed Xing Dongxing's instructions. However, what surprised the two of them was that Okuda had no intention of asking about this matter at all. Not to mention opening the letter, he didn't even say anything. He just stamped the seal of the Island Lord Pavilion on the letter as usual. Other than that, he didn't care about anything else. Wu Miao's strange expression made Xing Dongxing's face turn red. After a long time, he squeezed out through his clenched teeth. Just wait and see. Xing Dongxing's face turned red as he looked at Wu Miao's strange expression. Over the next few days, Xing Dongxing and Wu Miao wholeheartedly waited for East Continent's reply. After they stopped all activities, Tiandan Pavilion returned to normal. Because of the level 7 elixir Lin Yi released, the business was booming day by day, forcing him to borrow 2 more workers from Kai Zhongyang for emergency purposes. Meanwhile, Sydney Pear City had finally begun to recruit people. If this continued, the expansion of the Heavenly Dan Pavilion would be an urgent matter, and it would be impossible without enough manpower. Lin Yi had been so busy these past few days that he even had to work as a waiter himself. He had a good taste of the hardships and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It really wasn't easy for Tian Chan and Shueli to survive these 2 years when he dropped the ball from time to time. However, during the busiest period, Island Master Pavilion suddenly sent him an invitation. Acting Island Master Okuda wanted to see him. Of course, Lin Yi could not ignore it. He had already guessed the relationship between Okuda and Okuda Dam. Moreover, Okuda was unfathomable and fair, so Lin Yi wanted to befriend him. After he received the invitation, he informed Tian Chan and the others of his arrival before heading to Island Master Pavilion. Lin Yi was about to look for someone to inform Okuda when he raised his head and saw Okuda. He was instantly overwhelmed by the favor. The acting island master had personally come to welcome him. Young hero Lin, it seems like this isn't your first time here, said Okuda with a smile. You guessed correctly, Island Master Okuda. I have been here once before. At that time, Big Brother the Will of Heaven was competing with Southern Aurora for the Deputy Island Master position. 2 years have passed since then, said Lin Yi with mixed emotions. The will of heaven is your big brother. Okuda was slightly stunned. At his level, there was no one in Middle Island who could enter his eyes, but the will of heaven was an exception. Although this person's realm was not high, his strength and potential that far exceeded his realm should not be underestimated. Even if this kind of person suffered a setback, once he recovered, his future would only be more promising. If he had enough opportunities, it was not impossible for him to stand shoulder to shoulder with a disciple from a super family like Okuda. We are friends despite the difference in age. Lin Yi smiled. Hee, birds of a feather flock together. This saying is true. Young hero Lin and the will of heaven are the same kind of people. It's a pity that he went to the East Continent. Otherwise, we could have a good gathering today, Okuda said with some regret. Since Island Master Okuda doesn't mind, there will always be a chance in the future. Lin Yi nodded and pushed the boat along with the current. Well said. However, the will of heaven is not here today, so only the two of us can sit and drink together. How about it? Okuda suggested. Since Island Master Okuda has said so, I dare not disobey. Lin Yi cupped his hands and smiled. The two immediately went to the main hall of the first island. Okuda ordered people to prepare a few exquisite but not luxurious dishes. He then personally brought 2 jars of aged wine and sat down to drink. Lin Yi only took a sip and was immediately surprised. He said in surprise, "This wine is so strong." He had also drunk strong wine in the secular world. In comparison, the spiritual wine on Heaven Level Island was not as strong. However, the wine that Okuda brought out was very strong. It was even stronger than those in the secular world. A good man should drink strong wine. A good man should drink strong liquor. This is a craft that has been passed down in our Okuda family for generations. Not only is the craft unparalleled, even the ingredients used are rare spiritual herbs. The entire family can only produce 20 jars a year. As for this kind of aged liquor, it's even rarer. It's not easy to get 1 jar under the covetous eyes of so many people. If it weren't for young hero Lin, I wouldn't have been willing to take out these 2 jars of spirit liquor, Okuda said, pretending to be distressed. Chapter 4998. Okuda was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "It seems that my third brother is right, young hero Lin, you really are a wonderful person. I don't have much wine left, so you might not be able to drink it the next time you come." Third brother. Do you mean? Lin Yi was a little surprised. He just speculated that Okuda and Okuda came from the same family, but he did not think that the relationship between the two would be so close. Yes, Okuda and I are half-brothers. I am the second, he is the third, but he has some problems with the family, so he never mentions the family to others. Okuda nodded and thanked him. Speaking of which, I have to thank young hero Lin. If you didn't remind me, I wouldn't have known that he came to Nakajima. I haven't seen him and his brother for many years. So that's how it is, with a master like you and a person like the captain, your family is really not a small matter. Lin Yi praised. It's not a small matter, just a member of a super family. Okuda smiled. Super family. Lin Yi was stunned. It was the first time he heard of this word. It seemed that the power of Middle Island was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. In Heaven Stage Island, if one did not reach a certain level of strength, it was generally impossible to know the structure of these forces hidden under the water, and Lin Yi was now a master in the early stage of mysterious ascension. His real strength was comparable to the giants in the early stage of mountain opening. It was time for him to understand these things, otherwise, if he didn't know anything, it might cause a lot of trouble. Okuda intended to make friends with Lin Yi. Since he mentioned it, he planned to explain it to him. This could be regarded as a favor, and Lin Yi would certainly be grateful to him. However, before he could speak, a sudden sound of footsteps came from outside, and then a guard hurriedly came in and reported, "Deputy Island Master Wu has brought people to see you." Deputy Island Master Wu. What is he doing here? Okuda was a little surprised. Hearing the noise outside, he knew that the guards would not be able to stop them, so he waved his hand and said, "Let them in." After a while, Wu Miao and the others came in, and Lin Yi was stunned to see them. There were many people who came with him, and they were all familiar faces, such as Xing Dongxing, Nantian Aurora, and Tong Yangsuo. The only one who didn't come was Xing Dongjue. After all, his relationship with medicine sect couldn't be easily exposed, and it would affect his position in the pill hall. Lin Yi was a bit stunned to see these people, and these people were just as stunned to see Lin Yi. They stared at each other for a long while before Okuda's Zhou broke the silence. "Vice Island Master Wu, what brings you to the First Island Master's Hall?" "Mr. Okuda, I just received a reply from the East Continent, so I contacted Master Zhang and asked him to come over to take a look," said Wu Miao respectfully. "Is that so? How did East Continent reply?" Okuda looked at them with an ambiguous smile. "We haven't seen it yet." It's more convincing to open the reply in front of Okuda, lest people think that I'm forging a letter. Xing Dongxing's tone was neutral. He turned to look at Lin Yi and said, "This letter is directly related to the fate of Tiandan Pavilion. It's your fortune to hear it. At least you won't die without knowing the reason." "Oh, then I'm all ears." Lin Yi and Okuda looked at each other. Although he didn't know the whole story, he could roughly guess what was going on. Since Okuda wasn't going to help them deal with Lin Yi, these people actually targeted East Continent instead. They really didn't want to give up. Xing Dongxing and the others sneered at the same time. He was still pretending even when he was about to die. This kid really didn't know what was good for him. Although Xing Dongxing didn't think that East Continent would really punish Middle Island and embarrass Okuda, no matter what, Lin Yi and Tiandan Pavilion were definitely going to die. There was no doubt about it. Since we're already at this point, let's not waste any more time. "Open it and take a look," Okuda said casually as he continued drinking with Lin Yi. "Okay." Xing Dongxing glanced at them proudly and took the reply from East Continent from Wu Miao. There were 2 letters inside. One was from Zhuang Yifan, the president of the Golden Step College Alliance, and the other was from Ling Yuanqing, the dean of Morning Star College. Let me read President Zhuang's reply first. Xing Dongxing was very pleased with himself. Zhuang Yifan had actually personally replied to him, which made him feel somewhat flattered. Zhuang Yifan was a real big shot. What was the island master of Middle Island to him? Moreover, Okuda was only the acting island owner in name. Xing Dongxing opened the letter in front of everyone. There was only a single line of words on it. Xing Dongxing thought to himself that Zhuang Yifan was a big shot after all. His reply was concise and clear. He probably didn't think much of Middle Island. Xing Dongxing deliberately cleared his throat before he started reading Zhuang Yifan's reply. President Zhuang said in the letter, "Fuck off." Thinking up to this point, Xing Dongxing was the first to be dumbfounded. His originally proud face suddenly turned red. What kind of situation was this? Wu Miao and the others looked at each other. Lin Yi almost burst out laughing. Zhuang Yifan's reply was full of character. "Fuck off." Grandmaster Zhang, can you help explain what President Zhuang means? Okuda Oshu looked at Xing Dongxing with a ridiculing expression. This. Xing Dongxing was a little embarrassed. He didn't know why Zhuang Yifan was scolding him. After a long while, he could only explain himself. Looking at the time, the path of the tyrant should have just ended. President Zhuang must be busy with the ranking of the academies. He won't be too happy if we bother him with such a small matter when he's so busy. Plus, President Zhuang has always been humorous and speaks casually, so this is humorous. This is the first time I've heard of it. I've learned a lot today, said Lin Yi with an ambiguous smile. President Zhuang is very humorous. It seems like Master Zheng has a good relationship with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used such words, said Okuda in all seriousness. Wu Miao and the others had strange expressions on their faces when they heard their mockery. They looked at each other and didn't know what to say. They had a bad feeling about this. Something didn't seem right. Chapter 4999. However, when he opened the second letter, he saw that it was written by Qing Danzi instead of Ling Yuanqing's handwriting. That's right. Someone shamelessly claimed to be Grandmaster Qing Danzi's master, but his master passed away many years ago. Grandmaster Qing Danzi is obviously the angriest, so it's normal for him to write this letter. Jing Dongxing was still trying to justify himself, and did not learn from his mistakes. He read it out loud in front of everyone. Jing Dongxing, you dare to frame my master. I will expel you, and from now on, there will be no place for you in the Morning Star Academy. Silence. Hall 1 fell into a strange silence. Jing Dongxing was dumbfounded, and so were Wu Miao and the others. Okuda was trying his best to hold back his laughter. As the acting island master, it would be too impolite for him to laugh in front of everyone. Pfft. Lin Yi did not have this scruple. He spat out a mouthful of wine and glanced at the dumbfounded Jing Dongxing. He said to Okuda, "Don't tell me this guy is a comedian. Did you hire him to help you drink?" "I didn't pay a single spiritual jade." Okuda smiled. "Free. So you're an old artist with both skills and morals, I'm impressed." Lin Yi said seriously, full of admiration. Pfft. This time, Okuda finally burst out laughing. He did not expect Lin Yi to be so funny. How did he come up with such a thing? Jing Dongxing's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He was not in the mood to refute Lin Yi's sarcasm. His mind was filled with Qing Danzi's words. What the hell was that? Lin Yi was actually Qing Danzi's master. If Jing Dongxing still did not realize that he had kicked an iron plate, he would be stupid. They were both high-level alchemists, but he was only a 7th-grade alchemist, while Lin Yi was Qing Danzi's master. He could not even compare to Lin Yi's disciple. What the hell was he supposed to do? Qing Danzi's words meant that he would never be able to return to the Morning Star Academy. One must know that the chief alchemist had absolute control over the other alchemists in the academy. Since Qing Danzi told him to scram, then Ling Yuanqing would definitely not hesitate. Even if Jing Dongxing was a 7th-tier alchemist, and was welcomed in any Eastern Continent Golden Tier Academy, since Qing Danzi didn't like him, the Morning Star Academy had no other choice. If they went against Qing Danzi's wishes and forcefully protected him, then they would affect each other and no one would be able to concoct pills in peace. Therefore, in any Eastern Continent Academy, the chief alchemist could decide who he wanted to leave with a single word. There was no room for negotiation. The academy could only protect the strongest one. At this moment, Jing Dongxing was struck by 5 bolts of lightning. Even though there wasn't any tribulation lightning, it was no different from being struck by lightning. His essence, energy, and spirit didn't have the slightest trace of the complacency and arrogance he had before, and he was instead filled with defeat. Although as a Tier 7 alchemist, Jing Dongxing did not have to worry about not having enough to eat no matter where he went. The problem was that he had been operating in the Morning Star Academy for so many years, and all of his connections and foundations were in the Morning Star Academy. Now that Qing Danzi's words had caused all of his hard work to go down the drain, he would have to start from scratch if he went somewhere else. No one would be able to accept this. Not only that, but now that he thought about Zhuang Yifan's foul language, he wasn't trying to deceive himself or find it troublesome. Instead, he was clearly expressing the same attitude as Qing Danzi. This meant that not only would he be kicked out of the Morning Star Academy, but he would also offend the president of the union, who was at the peak of his power. It was unknown whether the other Golden Tier academies would be willing to accept him in the future. His future was bleak. Master Zhang. Wu Miao rubbed her hands. She wanted to say something to comfort him, but she didn't know what to say. Nantian Aurora and Tong Yangsuo looked at each other and didn't say anything. They had no right to speak here anyway. Xing Dongxing ignored him. He glanced at Okuda and Lin Yi resentfully. He was so ashamed that he didn't even know what to say. He turned around and left in defeat. Wu Miao and the others hurriedly chased after him. After they left the main hall of Island Number 1, Wu Miao hurried over and asked, Master Zhang, what should we do next? What else can we do? Nothing. Xing Dongxing said angrily. Ha! Wu Miao and the others looked at each other. We've already lost. The few of us can't do anything to Lin Yi and Tiandan Pavilion. I can't even protect myself now, and I can't stay on Middle Island any longer. I have to hurry back to the East Continent to deal with the aftermath. I'll try to salvage as much as I can, said Xing Dongxing with a sigh. He had returned to Middle Island full of himself. Wu Miao and the others had been full of praise for him. However, in the blink of an eye, he was reduced to such a miserable state. He was like a stray dog. Life was truly unpredictable. What? You're going back to the East Continent? Wu Miao's expression changed drastically. He was counting on Xing Dongxing to refine pills for him. If Xing Dongxing returned to the East Continent just like that, who was he going to look for in the future? He couldn't possibly look for Lin Yi for help, right? We'll talk about it later. I can't refine pills in my current state. Xing Dongxing smiled bitterly and left in a hurry without explaining anything. No matter what, he was too ashamed to stay on Middle Island. Wu Miao and the others looked at each other speechlessly. Xing Dongxing wasn't the only one who had suffered heavy losses this time. They weren't any better off. Medicine Sect had failed to get rid of Tiandan Pavilion. If Tiandan Pavilion grew stronger in the future, their business would definitely be greatly affected. Wu Miao had also offended Okuda because of this incident, so she would definitely suffer in the future. As for Nantian Aurora, who was bent on currying favor with Wu Miao, the acting deputy island lord position that Wu Miao had promised him was still a long way off. After all, Wu Miao could barely protect herself. As an executive deputy island lord, it would be extremely difficult for him to push someone else to take over the position. Once Okuda vetoed it, it would be over for him. Everyone left resentfully. Okuda and Lin Yi's drinking mood was not affected at all. The two of them were initially unfamiliar with each other, but after this incident and after drinking a few glasses of wine, they quickly became familiar with each other. Of course, this was mainly because Okuda had the intention to befriend them. After all, he was from a super aristocratic family. With Okuda Dam's reminder, he could clearly see Lin Yi's value. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken out his treasured wine. Although this Xing Dongxing is a 7th grade alchemist, his brain is really hopeless. He actually thinks that by using Zhuang Yifan, he can suppress the entire Middle Island. He's really a frog in a well. Okuda sneered. Chapter 5000. Could it be that the East Continent's Golden Academy Alliance can't restrain Middle Island? Asked Lin Yi curiously. Although he wasn't as naive as Xing Dongxing, after his trip to the East Continent, he felt that the East Continent's Golden Academy Alliance should still be able to restrain the other Heaven Islands. After all, As long as they made a fuss about the quota for the Academy's disciples, the other heaven islands would have to think twice. Even if there are restrictions, it's not one-sided. It's mutual. Middle Island isn't that weak. Okuda brought this up because he wanted to introduce some secrets to Lin Yi, which were exactly what Lin Yi needed to know. Master Okuda, forgive me for asking, but how strong is Middle Island? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask. What do you think, young hero Lin? Okuda smiled and asked. I used to think that Middle Island was very strong. However, after I broadened my horizons, I realized that not only East Continent and South Continent, but even North Island and West Island are much stronger than Middle Island. Middle Island is actually the weakest, replied Lin Yi honestly. You're not wrong to think that way. Based on the strength that they've shown, Middle Island is indeed the weakest. Even Wu Miao, a deputy island master, has to bow and scrape to a mere 7th grade pill master. It would be a joke to say that Middle Island is strong. However, that's just what they've shown, said Okuda as he shook his head. What about their true strength? Asked Lin Yi curiously. If it comes down to it, apart from the East Continent, it's hard to say which of the 5 Heaven Stage Islands is stronger. At the very least, the Central Island is definitely not the weakest, Okuda specifically reminded. Then why is Middle Island's Master Pavilion so weak? I feel like they can't compare to the super big shots of the other Heaven Islands at all. Lin Yi frowned. That's because the island masters and deputy island masters who come out to maintain order are just representatives sent by some old monsters and super families who don't want to meddle in other people's business. The one who can really decide the fate of Middle Island isn't the Island Master Pavilion, but the Middle Island Elder Council, which is above the Island Master Pavilion, Okuda explained. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. This kind of thing was not difficult to understand. North Island had an Elders' Assembly, and Middle Island naturally had an Elders' Assembly as well. The difference between the two was that North Island was directly led by a super big shot like Shengwan Tianhua, unlike Middle Island, who retreated behind the scenes to promote an agent. Every member of Middle Island's Elder Council is either from a super family or a super sect. Every one of them has a deep background. These are the true big shots who have the right to speak, Okuda continued. Island Master Okuda, I just wanted to ask about this, but I was interrupted just now. What kind of existence are these super families and super sects? Lin Yi was very puzzled. Simply put, these two are existences that are a level higher than ordinary sects and ordinary families. Every super family has at least 1,000 years of inheritance on Heaven Stage Island, so they are called millennial families. However, they are all hidden from the world and concentrate on cultivation. They rarely get involved in the specific affairs of the outside world. They are just like the Island Master Pavilion in Middle Island, so without reaching a certain level, it is impossible to know about their existence, Okuda explained patiently. So that's how it is. It sounds similar to the hidden families in the secular world. However, in the secular world, in addition to the hidden level, there is a higher level, the ancient level. I wonder if Heaven Stage Island is the same. Are there any forces that are more powerful than millennial families? Lin Yi asked. You are not the only one who wants to know the answer. In fact, we have also been looking for it. I can only say that there might be. Maybe the legendary millennial families really exist. However, even if they do exist, this kind of existence will only appear in the East Continent. It should be impossible in the other Heaven Stage Islands, Okuda said after thinking for a while. Lin Yi nodded. Heaven Stage Islands like Middle Island had limited space. If there really was a millennial family, they should have discovered it long ago. However, the East Continent was different. The East Continent was vast and rich in resources. Maybe there was a millennial family living in seclusion in some unknown and mysterious place. This was not impossible. I don't think the possibility of a millennial family is high. Lin Yi shook his head. After all, the human civilization in the secular world had only been around for a few thousand years. Although Heaven Stage Island was isolated from the secular world, the possibility of a transcendental existence like a family appearing 10,000 years ago was really not high. I think so too, but there has always been a legend about this. No one knows whether it is true or not. In short, even if it is not a millennial family, the heritage of any millennial family is unimaginable. Only they can truly decide the fate of Heaven Stage Island. It's just that not many people know about it, Okuda said with a smile. Thank you, Lord Okuda, for telling me all this. It really broadened my horizons. If I didn't know about this, I don't know how much trouble I would cause in the future. Lin Yi said with sincere gratitude. Ever since he returned from the East Continent, his confidence had been very obvious. He even didn't care about Middle Island anymore. This was a very dangerous mentality. If he let it go, he would definitely be in trouble. It was true that with his current strength, he could bully everyone in the Island Master's Pavilion except for Okuda. However, if he really went against the Island Master's Pavilion, it would definitely alarm the Middle Island Elders Guild. At that time, even if Okuda didn't take action, those super families and super sects could easily deal with him. That would really be a disaster. The ignorant were fearless. This saying was true. Now that he learned about these existences from Okuda, Lin Yi finally regained his former reverence. Although his current strength was not weak, it was far from the point where he could be fearless. There was still a long way to go in the future. Young hero Lin is too polite. At your level, you will naturally know about these things. Even if I don't say it, others will remind you. It's not worth your thanks. Okuda smiled and waved his hand. Even so, I still have to thank Lord Okuda. It's better to know about these things one day earlier than one day later. Otherwise, there might be accidents. Lin Yi smiled. In fact, what Okuda said was also true. Even if he didn't know about these things in Middle Island, when he returned to the North Island in the future, Shanghai Tianhua would definitely tell him. He didn't say it before because his level was not high enough. Chapter 5001. After all, the real owner of the island wouldn't be as impartial as Okuda, and he wouldn't go to Okuda Ba for confirmation. If they really fought, even if Lin Yi could win, if the Elder Council of Middle Island were to come out and force the super houses and sects to come out personally, he would definitely be in big trouble. Thinking about it now made him break out in cold sweat. Although Shanghai Tianhua and Ning Shengling would probably come out, Okuda had helped him avoid this disaster in advance, and this was a favor that Lin Yi had to remember. The two continued drinking and chatting, and Lin Yi suddenly remembered that Southern Sky Aurora had appeared together with him. He suddenly remembered something that he had been thinking about for a long time. Okuda Island Master, do you know of any way to go to the common world? Lin Yi asked with anticipation. The common world. Okuda paused, and only then did he remember that Okuda Ba had said that Lin Yi came from the common world. He thought about it and said, I don't know much about this, but I know that elixir god Zhang Liju definitely has a way. Although there are other ways, they are definitely in the hands of the super houses. It's a pity that my Okuda clan doesn't know much about this, so the information we have is really limited. I know that, but I want to ask if there are other ways to go to the common world. I remember that Southern Sky Aurora was able to go to the common world as a guide, but I don't know what method he used, Lin Yi said with anticipation. This idea had been in his mind for a long time. According to what he knew, when Southern Sky Aurora came to the common world, he was only at the original soul level. If he could do it, then there was no reason why he couldn't do it. It was just that his strength was too low, and after reaching the original soul level, he didn't have the chance to come to Middle Island. He only came back now that he was a profound ascendant early stage master. He originally wanted to ask the will of heaven, but since the will of heaven wasn't here, asking Okuda would be the same. Emissary. Okuda was taken aback for a moment, then nodded and said, "Yes, there is indeed such a way to descend to the secular world. This is not a secret in the Island Lord Pavilion. As long as your strength reaches the Yuanying stage, it is even easier for you to do so with your current strength at the early stage of mysterious ascension. However, this method cannot achieve true teleportation, and can only temporarily project your soul over." "Yes, I know." Lin Yi nodded. When he first saw Southern Sky Aurora, he knew at first glance that it was only a primordial spirit. Otherwise, if it was so easy to teleport back and forth, Heaven Island and the secular world wouldn't be so isolated. The key to this method lies in the divine sense. Although it is more difficult for those with a stronger divine sense to project, they can also stay longer. On the other hand, those with a weaker divine sense can only stay for a few days at most. Moreover, the strength of the divine sense is also dependent on the divine sense, so it is inevitable that it will be greatly weakened. Although you are currently Xianxing, the strength you project might not even be comparable to a heaven stage great perfection expert. This depends on the individual, Okuda explained. That doesn't matter. I just want to go back to the secular world to take a look. As for how long I can stay there, it doesn't matter how much strength I can retain. Lin Yi couldn't hide the excitement on his face. From the first day on Heaven Island, returning to the secular world had always been the biggest problem in front of him. Although he could only send his primordial spirit back this time, he was already very satisfied. "In that case, I can help you. This method is in the hands of the island master, and I am the person in charge now. This is a piece of cake." Okuda nodded. "Thank you, Island Master Okuda." Lin Yi was overjoyed. He originally thought that even if it wasn't as troublesome as real teleportation, it definitely wouldn't be easy. At the very least, he would have to pay a huge price. He didn't expect Okuda to agree so easily. Of course, this was also because he had Okuda's connections. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to do this. After all, the Island Master Pavilion wouldn't easily send an outsider's primordial spirit to the secular world. Furthermore, the will of heaven wasn't around. If it weren't for Okuda, he wouldn't even have anyone to talk to, let alone offend Wu Miao, the executive deputy island master. "I'll tell someone to get ready. It might take a few days." "Go back and wait for the news," said Okuda. "Okay." Lin Yi nodded. Lin Yi was extremely excited after coming out of the Island Master Pavilion. He couldn't calm down even after walking all the way back to Tiandan Pavilion. The first thing he said when he returned to Tiandan Pavilion was, "Tian-chan, Sydney, I'm going back to the secular world." "What?" Tian-chan and Shueli were shocked at the same time. Everyone who came from the mortal world had this kind of obsession more or less. Even if they did not have it in the beginning, it would slowly develop in the future. However, they might not have as many concerns as Lin Yi, and their obsession was not as strong. "You didn't hear me wrong. I said I can go back to the secular world. However, I can only send my primordial spirit over this time." "It's not a real teleportation," said Lin Yi excitedly. "Primordial spirit projection." The two women didn't know what he meant. "It's just like when Aurora Australis went to the secular world. We didn't see him in person. We only saw his primordial spirit projection. Although we can't stay for long and the primordial spirit strength will be greatly weakened, we can finally go back after leaving the secular world for so long." Lin Yi couldn't help but rub his palms together eagerly. That's great. Tian-chan and Sydney were excited at the same time. They couldn't help but ask hopefully, can we go too? According to Okuda Island Master, it's fine as long as you're at the nascent soul stage. With my current strength, I can directly raise your strength to the perfected nascent soul stage. It shouldn't be a problem to tell him. Lin Yi nodded. Since Okuda Island Master wanted to do him a favor, whether it was one person or three, it wouldn't make much difference. He would definitely agree. Really? The two women were overjoyed. However, they immediately fell into a dilemma. But what about Tiandan Pavilion? Business is getting better every day. If we don't look after it, how can we be at ease? Now is the crucial time to grow. We can't just abandon it, right? Lin Yi was also stunned. Previously, he was so excited that he forgot about the situation at Tiandan Pavilion. Even if Tian-chan and Sydney worked together, they would still be very busy. If even the two of them left, the situation at Tiandan Pavilion would instantly collapse. Wouldn't everything they did before be in vain? Chapter 5002. Tian-chan and Sydney hesitated for a long time. Finally, they looked at each other and sighed helplessly. Forget it, this time we are not going back with our real bodies. We don't have as many things to worry about in the secular world as you do. Forget it this time, but after you go there, you can go and see the situation of Five Element Sect and Snow Valley for us. I don't know how they are now. Okay, I'll remember it. Lin Yi nodded. If it was a real transmission, he would definitely find a way to settle down in Tiandan Pavilion and bring the two women with him. But this time, the situation was special. It was just a projection of the soul to see the situation, so it was not necessary. Tian-chan and Sydney had just said a few words to Lin Yi when Wei Shinjin and the others below began to complain. The two women hurriedly went down to help, but were stopped by Lin Yi. Let them work hard for a while. I don't know how long I can stay in the secular world in the form of a soul, so I can't take care of here for the time being. So, I still have to improve the strength of the two of you first, so that no one will come to make trouble. Oh. When the two women heard this, their cheeks immediately blushed. The scene of Lin Yi improving their strength last time was still vivid in their minds. Although they had already given their hearts to Lin Yi, the two women still couldn't help but feel shy and embarrassed at the thought of taking off their clothes. Seeing this, Lin Yi immediately laughed. Obviously, he also thought of that scene. It was definitely a pleasing experience. As for Wei Shinjin, although he had taken the heart-devouring insect, his performance in the past 2 years could be regarded as diligent and loyal. Lin Yi had no plans to directly improve his strength for the time being. It was not entirely because he didn't trust him, but mainly because he felt that it was not necessary. Wei Shinjin was now in the early nascent soul stage. Instead of directly increasing his strength through excessive enthusiasm, it was better to give him some auxiliary medicinal pills such as the Gathering Nascent Soul Golden Pill. In this way, the improvement of his strength would not be too slow, and he would have a better foundation, which would be more beneficial for the future. While Lin Yi was busy making preparations, he was completely unaware that an enemy in the distant East Continent was thinking about him. This person was not Rinzhong Yuan, Xiao Tian, Bao Zuoliang, or Su Kexing. Instead, it was the heretic cultivator who had fought with him before, the mighty figure of the West Mountain Heretic Sect. Last time, from Soaring Cloud City to Morningstar City, the mighty figure of Western Mountain had chased Lin Yi all the way. He had even sacrificed one of his arms to use such a vicious and forbidden technique as a blood sacrifice. In the end, he still wasn't able to take down Lin Yi. Instead, he suffered a great loss of vitality. Since then, he hadn't been able to recover even after recuperating for so many months. His strength was greatly reduced, and he was in an extremely miserable state. But even so, the mighty figure of Western Mountain still didn't forget to pay attention to Lin Yi's movements. As a result, he found out that Lin Yi had already left Morningstar City. After that, he didn't know where he went. However, today, in the latest list of Profound Ascending Stage Masters announced by the East Continent Yellow Stage Academy Alliance, he actually found Lin Yi's name. Profound Xing. This kid actually became Profound Xing. The mighty figure of Western Mountain was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. The little vitality that he had recovered in the past few months was suddenly wasted. The last time they fought, he was in the late Profound Ascending stage, and Lin Yi was only in the late Nascent Soul stage. Even so, he couldn't take Lin Yi's life, and now Lin Yi was already in the early Profound Ascending stage. Not only did the strength of the mighty figure of Western Mountain not improve, but because he lost an arm, his strength was greatly reduced. If they fought again, he would no longer be a match for Lin Yi. After all, the mighty figure of Western Mountain was not stupid. Although he wanted to find Lin Yi for revenge, he was not blindly arrogant. At this time, even if he was given a chance to take revenge, he would definitely not dare to find Lin Yi alone. He was only filled with resentment and unwillingness. No. I can't let that kid go like this. The mighty figure of Western Mountain really couldn't swallow this anger, but he didn't have the strength to take revenge. He was so anxious that he paced around the room for a long time. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. Right, I can't deal with this kid, but someone else can. After making up his mind, the mighty figure of Western Mountain didn't care that his vitality had not recovered. He immediately packed up his things, found a flying spirit beast, and went straight to the South Continent Sea. From the East Continent Yellow Steppe Sea to the South Continent Sea, such a long distance, even for a Profound Ascension late-stage master like him, it was not easy, especially now that his injury had not recovered. But the mighty figure of Western Mountain couldn't care so much, because the person he was looking for was now in the South Continent Sea, and this person was the Western Mountain Old Master. The main reason why he promised Yi Xiaotian to kill Lin Yi was because of the Western Mountain Old Master. He wanted to take Lin Yi's head to please him. Now, although he didn't have Lin Yi's head, as an evil cultivator, he really had no other choice, so he could only reluctantly give it a try. The whereabouts of the Western Mountain Old Master was not a secret in the Western Mountain Evil Sect. The mighty figure of Western Mountain quickly found the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. He didn't pay a visit, but directly landed in the backyard. A one-armed freak descended from the sky. This scene immediately startled all the escorts on duty at the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. They hurriedly shouted and surrounded him. However, when they felt the aura released by the mighty Shishan expert, they immediately did not dare to act rashly. It was actually a mysterious Ascension late-stage expert. Even if all of them joined forces, they would not be a match for him. The mighty figure of Shishan glanced coldly at the minions and shouted coldly, "I'm the mighty figure of Shishan Evil Sect. I'm here to seek an audience with Shishan Old Sect. Evil Cultivator." Everyone looked at each other. Although they were used to being ridiculed because of the existence of the Western Mountain Old Master, they still felt strange seeing the mighty figure of Western Mountain at this time. In the future, would the Dragon Boat Escort Agency really become the headquarters of evil cultivators? Why are you still not leaving? At this time, Long Kiba arrived late. He looked up and down the mighty figure of Western Mountain, and respectfully said, "The Western Mountain Old Master invites you, please follow me." Under the guidance of Long Kiba, the mighty figure of Western Mountain soon saw the Western Mountain Old Master in the main hall. He quickly knelt down and respectfully kowtowed. Western Mountain Old Master greets the Western Mountain Old Master. Where are you from? How come I don't seem to have seen you before? The Western Mountain Old Master slanted a pair of triangular yin-yang eyes and looked at the mighty figure of Western Mountain with a strange tone. Reporting to the Old Master, this subordinate is assigned to the Eastern Continent branch. The mighty figure of Western Mountain replied. If that's the case, why don't you stay in the Eastern Continent? Why did you come to the Southern Continent? The Western Mountain Old Master asked curiously. Reporting to the Old Master, this subordinate came to the Southern Continent for only one thing, and that is to become the Old Master's disciple. I sincerely ask the Old Master to grant my wish. The mighty figure of Western Mountain kowtowed again. Chapter 5003. The Almighty was not surprised by West Mountain Elder's reaction. After all, he was the second most powerful person in the South Continent branch of West Mountain Evil Sect. There were a lot of people who wanted to be his disciple. They either had great potential or had a special relationship. Otherwise, why would he accept him as a disciple? Unfortunately, the Almighty could not meet either of these two conditions. If he wanted West Mountain Elder to accept him, the only thing he could do was to play the pity card. I know my limits, but I hope that old sect master will consider my loyalty and give me a chance. I will not disappoint you. Shishan Almighty begged. The West Mountain Elder laughed and asked casually, "What's the matter with your arm? Do you know the blood sacrifice technique?" Elder is wise. I did use the blood sacrifice technique a few months ago. You know the person I killed. He is Lin Yi who killed your nephew, Wu Bao Liang. West Mountain Elder nodded. Lin Yi. West Mountain Elder's spirit was lifted. In order to track down Lin Yi, he did not hesitate to use the West Mountain Evil Sect's intelligence system. He knew that Lin Yi was Ling Yi and that Lin Yi went to East Continent from West Island some time ago. He did not expect that he had fought with West Mountain Elder. He was immediately surprised and said, "You killed him. This subordinate is incompetent." Although I was able to deal with him, a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, and did not hesitate to use the great blood sacrifice technique, but in the end, it was all for naught. He escaped into Morningstar City, and now, according to the latest list released by the East Continent's Yellow Step Academy Alliance, he is already an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, Shishan said in shame. West Mountain Elder was speechless when he heard this. But thinking that even he could not kill Lin Yi back then, he really could not blame West Mountain Elder for this. It could only be said that Lin Yi was really evil. Although his strength was not high, he was not that easy to deal with. Old Sect Master, the hatred between this subordinate and Lin Yi's severed arm is absolutely irreconcilable. But now that I've lost an arm, I'm afraid I'm no match for that brat. I beg Elder to give me a chance on account of my sincerity. In the future, I'll definitely hand over Lin Yi's head with both hands. Shishan Almighty begged. At this point, West Mountain Old Master finally changed his mind. Since there was a common enemy, Lin Yi, he would accept it. In any case, the mighty figure of West Mountain was not too weak, and he also knew the great blood sacrifice technique, so he would be of some use. If that's the case, then you can stay. Although losing an arm is a bit of a hindrance, it's just right for you to practice our sect's soul hook hand. Who knows, he might even be able to cultivate faster than someone with both arms. The West Mountain Elder nodded. Thank you, Elder. Hearing this, the mighty figure of West Mountain was overjoyed. He hurriedly kowtowed 3 times. Disciple, West Mountain Almighty, greets Master. This time, he was really overjoyed. In his expectations, it would be good enough if West Mountain Old Master was willing to take him in. Who would have thought that West Mountain Old Master would be willing to teach him the soul hook hand? This was West Mountain Old Master's famous ultimate technique. Alright, get up. West Mountain Old Master waved his hand. Yes. The mighty figure of West Mountain stood up happily. Then, he asked curiously, Master, when Disciple rode over on a flying spirit beast just now, I felt that the South Continent Sea seemed to be very chaotic. Why has the Spirit Beast clan begun to send experts to these human territories? This has nothing to do with us. It doesn't matter what the Spirit Beast clan does, as long as it doesn't affect us. Don't be a busybody, lest you get yourself into trouble. West Mountain Old Master warned. Disciple understands. West Mountain Almighty nodded hurriedly. Anyway, the only thing he had to do now was to quickly improve his strength and take revenge. Everything else was irrelevant to him. He had no intention of being a busybody. Hee. Although this matter has nothing to do with us, since you asked, I'll give you a word of advice. West Mountain Old Master laughed strangely and explained, I've already received news that the Spirit Beast clan is unwilling to be left out this time. This time, the Spirit Beast clan is unwilling to be left out, and they're preparing to incorporate the South Continent Sea into their territory. They're preparing to collect taxes from all the human forces in the South Continent Sea. Now that they've sent so many Spirit Beast experts to the South Continent Sea, it's just the first step in their preparations to collect taxes. But the South Continent Sea has always been the territory of human cultivators. In the past, the Spirit Beast clan has never ruled it, right? Is there no resistance here? West Mountain Almighty asked. In the beginning, there were a few forces who overestimated themselves and wanted to resist, but in front of the Spirit Beast clan, even if all the human forces in the South Continent Sea were united, it would be a piece of cake. Moreover, there was no one who could come forward to unite them, so what could they do? West Mountain Old Master shook his head disdainfully. That's true. Although the South Continent Sea has always been chaotic, there has never been a truly powerful top-notch force. Otherwise, they would have been united long ago. That way, the Spirit Beast clan wouldn't be able to do anything. West Mountain Almighty nodded. This time, the Spirit Beast clan came prepared. They didn't directly send Spirit Beast experts to attack the South Continent Sea. Instead, they only sent these Spirit Beast experts to create momentum. The people in the South Continent Sea have long been used to bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Once the Spirit Beast clan's strength is deeply rooted in the people's hearts, naturally, no one will resist when they start to collect taxes. West Mountain Old Master sneered. Since the Spirit Beast clan has begun to walk out of the South Island, I'm afraid the South Continent Sea won't be able to satisfy their appetite. Will it affect our West Mountain Sect's South Continent branch? West Mountain Almighty could not help but ask. Although the South Continent branch was not in the South Continent Sea, it was not far away. If the Spirit Beast clan wanted to further expand, it was very likely that they would be targeted by them. That won't be the case. Even the Righteous Alliance couldn't do it back then. No matter how powerful the Spirit Beast clan is, can they be more powerful than the Righteous Alliance? West Mountain Old Master chuckled and changed the topic. However, it's better to prepare for a rainy day. With the Spirit Beast clan's aggressive posture, our West Mountain sect should be a little more vigilant. They have now begun to send nominal stewards to various towns in the South Continent Sea. Although they don't care about the human cultivators for the time being, this is already Sima Zhao's intention, and everyone knows it. With you personally in charge, no matter what the Spirit Beast clan does, we won't be moved. West Mountain Almighty took the opportunity to flatter. Although you're flattering me, it's not an exaggeration. Besides, the Spirit Beast clan is different from those hypocrites who call themselves righteous. As long as there's a common interest, they may not be enemies with our West Mountain sect. Maybe there's a chance for us to join forces. West Mountain Old Master said meaningfully. The secular world, Shenangjia. Chapter 5004. There was a mysterious place that was shrouded in mist all year round. Not only was it uninhabited, but even the most accurate satellites couldn't see through it. All they could see was a blurry silhouette, but no one knew what was inside. There had been research teams that had ventured deep into the hinterland of Shenangjia dozens of times, using all kinds of cutting-edge equipment and even sacrificing several precious lives, but to this day, they were unable to truly explore the whole picture. No one knew what kind of secrets were buried in the depths. In other words, this was one of the few unknown places in the world. However, in the depths of this unknown land, there stood a towering mountain gate. The majestic and solemn buildings blended in with the surrounding primeval forest, without the slightest sense of incongruity. It was as if these buildings were the work of nature itself. From afar, they looked like they were made by nature and connected with each other. Inside the mountain was an empty space, and a group of male and female disciples stood there. At the front was a white-bearded old man who was giving them a lecture. From today onwards, the primordial sex disciple training that occurs once every 1,000 years will officially begin. All disciples of the primordial sect who meet the requirements must head to the mortal world for training. Remember, none of you are allowed to do anything that violates the laws of the mortal world. If you have nothing to do, do not take the initiative to cause trouble. Those who violate this rule will be severely punished. Yes. The disciples replied in unison. For this experiential learning, we will choose outstanding disciples with spirit roots of at least 2 elements to return to the Shenangjia archaic sect. Everyone only has 1 year's time. Once this time passes, the archaic passage will automatically close, and those who can't return will have to wait for another 1,000 years. Do you all understand? The white-bearded elder said seriously. Yes. The disciples replied again. There were men and women, young and old. If Lin Eth saw this, he'd be very shocked. They were all above Sky Class full mastery. They were all Sky Class masters. Common World, Shueshang District's villa. Counting the days, it had been 3 years since Lin Yi left. Even Ziyu was a third-year student now. Returning to the villa after class, she saw Wu Qintian lying on the chair in front of the door, bored out of his mind. Gatekeeper Master Wu. Say, can your life not be so monotonous? I see you lying at the door playing with your phone every time. You're going to become a Gatekeeper Master Wu if you keep this up. Ziyu couldn't help but complain. Other than playing with my phone, what else can I do? It's not like you have to go to school, and there's nothing else to do. Qintian continued playing with his phone without looking up. This was the truth. His life had basically been like this for the past 3 years. He couldn't find any passion at all. He felt like an old man who had retired early. It was completely different from the days when he was burning with passion. But this was also very normal. He was already at the great circle of the heaven realm and could be said to be an invincible existence in the secular world. Other than guarding Lin Yi and the other women in the villa, there was nothing else he could do. He had long since gotten used to this kind of retirement life. You're so free. Ziyu stuck her tongue out and looked over, surprised. Why are you playing this game too? So many of our classmates are playing this, I thought only us young people would play it. I didn't think that an old uncle like you would play School Beauty 3D too. How did I become an old uncle? Qintian said, hurt. Isn't it? Come, let me see your ID. I'll let my classmates add you, so you don't have to fight alone. Ziyu grabbed the phone and looked at it, her face turning weird. Lonely little demon. A female character. Ugh. Qintian blushed and explained weakly. Don't get it wrong, it's just that it's more convenient to play as a female character. It's easier to add people as friends, nothing else. Don't explain, explaining is covering up, and covering up is the truth. I've already seen through you. You're a strange uncle with a human demon. Ziyu threw the phone back to Chen and ran into the living room, screaming like she saw a ghost. Chen was speechless. It was just a human demon, it wasn't stealing or robbing. How did he become a strange uncle? Hey, you said it yourself. Don't forget to let your classmates add me as friends. Chen got up and ran into the living room. He turned around to see Ziyu carrying a big pile of snacks, piling them up like a small mountain on the coffee table. He jumped up, what's going on? It's just a human demon, isn't it? Is there a need for him to overeat and give up on himself to the point where his outlook on life has collapsed? Pfft, it's just a human demon. I was in the underworld back then, do you really think I'm some naive little girl? Ziyu rolled her eyes. Underworld. You're just a kid playing house, what kind of underworld are you? Chen couldn't help but laugh. Your Wu bro was also known as Iron Fist Wu, invincible in the world. He knew what Ziyu was like before Lin Yi found her. She was a delinquent girl, and it was only after Lin Yi kept an eye on her that she started to behave herself. She'd still be a little unruly from time to time. Of course, people like them all treated her like a little sister, so they didn't think there was anything wrong with that. Instead, they thought that she was cute. Pfft, and then she met Lin Yi bro and became a cripple. I'm not going to talk about this, I need to finish that drama today, don't disturb me. Ziyu hugged the snacks and turned on the TV. That drama. You're talking about that, School Beauty's Bodyguard on iQIYI. I finished watching it a long time ago, it's pretty good. Don't you think the main character's experience is similar to Boss Lin's? Chen laughed as he sat on the other side of the sofa, taking a bag of chips from Ziyu. His life was really boring right now, and he didn't mind watching it a second time. Not at all, alright. The main character is just a pervert, how can he compare to Lin Yi bro? Ziyu glared at him. Then why are you watching it? Chen asked curiously. I'm watching it for Lin Yi bro, so he can learn from it. Otherwise, he'll be like the main character, so dumb that he can't move his legs when he sees a woman. How embarrassing. Ziyu's mouth was full of snacks, and her voice was muffled as she spoke. Chen was speechless once more. He couldn't understand women's logic, especially a weird girl like Ziyu. He couldn't keep up with her at all. Right, the first season should be finished, right? Did they say when the second season is airing? Ziyu crossed her legs and asked casually. Chapter 5005. I don't know, but I saw a trailer saying that there's a show called Very Pure Very Flirtatious that's about to start filming. It's similar to this show, so we can look forward to it. Chen said lazily as he laid on the sofa with his mouth full of chips. Not bad, not bad. Uncle Wu, you're a godly TV show expert now. I'll definitely ask you about these things in the future. Ziyu praised. It's either Grandpa Wu or Uncle Wu. I say, can't you be a little more normal? We're from the same generation, would it kill you to call him Big Bro Wu? Chen said helplessly. Ziyu suddenly put down her snacks and sat up straight, looking at him seriously. I will. Chen didn't know what to say anymore. He could only pinch his nose and accept his fate. Why are you back today? It's the weekend already. The school wasn't far from here, but Ziyu usually stayed in the dorms, only coming back during the weekends and holidays. After all, Lin Yi wasn't here now, and it was pointless for her to come back every day. Uncle Wu, you're from Mars, right? Don't you know tomorrow's the 11th? Ziyu asked, surprised. Aw. Doesn't that mean today's the end of the month? Chen froze, not bothering to watch TV anymore. He quickly got up and left. I need to go buy groceries. Look after the upstairs for me, remember to check on me every half an hour. Got it, Steward Wu. Don't worry and go buy groceries. Ziyu waved her hand impatiently. Chen Tian had become the new generation's Uncle Fu, and everything here was handled by him. Even buying ingredients and cooking were done by him. He even signed up for a cooking class, and now he could cook so well. One could only say that his retirement life was boring to a whole new level. According to tradition, the end of every month was their gathering day. Other than Ziyu, Ling Shan, Su Shihan, Qing Yi, and Sun Jingyi would all come. Fatty Lai, Kong Xiaobo, Yu Bing, Han Xiaopa, and Zhao Qikuan would all come as well. Although some of them would come every weekend, they were all scattered all over the world, and none of them were like Chen Tian, who retired early to become a full-time butler. They all had their own things to do, and it was impossible for them to get together every weekend. But this time at the end of the month was unshakable. Even if they had something to do, they'd arrange it beforehand or just push it back. This was an important gathering for them. This was Chen Tian's time to work. With so many people gathered together, just arranging food and drinks was a big job. He'd have to bring back a whole cart every time he went to the market, and people who didn't know him would think that he was a street vendor. He'd gotten used to the fact that new security guards would be interrogated every time. Chen Tian was sweeping up all the goods in the market, haggling over the prices in all sorts of ways, looking like a typical auntie who'd been in the market for decades. With his strength and family background, he wouldn't have thought that things would turn out like this, but he was enjoying it now. Time really did change everything. Chen Tian was busy when his phone rang. It was Ling Shan, and he quickly picked it up. Sis-in-law, you called at the right time. What do you want to eat tonight? I'm at the market right now, I won't have the chance to eat when I get back. Ling Shan smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, I have an urgent mission right now. I'm afraid I won't be able to come tonight. Please apologize to everyone for me, okay? Wu Chen Tian was now Lin Yi's housekeeper, and no matter who it was, they had to report to him. If they wanted to know someone's situation, they just had to ask him, and he'd know everything. Urgent mission. Chen Tian couldn't help but be surprised. Sister-in-law, you're the vice director of the investigation department now. What kind of important mission would require you to go personally? Everyone knows about the month-end gathering, and Director Feng wouldn't have arranged anything for you, would he? That's true, but this mission is very special, and the entire investigation department has gathered. It's not a small matter, Ling Shan said solemnly. Could it be that some noble house or sect is causing trouble again? Chen Tian paused. Ever since Lin Yi united all the noble houses and sects in the common world, the investigation department was like the sun in the sky. Normally, no one would dare mess with them, and even the ancient noble houses had to obey their management. But now that Lin Yi had been gone for 3 years, it was normal for people to start making trouble. It shouldn't be. We received news that some unknown practitioners have appeared in the common world, and they seem to be very strong. But we don't know what they're trying to do or what they're trying to do, but the other noble houses and sects have gotten wind of it. If these people really want to cause trouble, it'll be a big mess. We have to be careful. Ling Shan said. If they're not from the noble houses, then could they be from Red Conches or the center? Chen Tian frowned. It wasn't strange for 1 or 2 hidden practitioners to pop up, but a group of unknown practitioners popping up out of nowhere was something they had to be careful of. Normal noble houses and sects didn't have this kind of strength, and they were more or less under the supervision of the investigation department. The only powers he knew of were Red Conches and the center. I've asked Doffing Bro, and there's no news from him. I think it's not them this time. Ling Shan paused, but according to Doffing Bro, the center seems to be planning something, but he's only in charge of making poisons, he doesn't have access to anything else yet. But if it's not the center, then who could it be? Chen Tian asked, puzzled. The center was the biggest suspect in this case, and if they could confirm it, they could at least make some countermeasures. But if these people didn't come from the center, and they didn't even know where they came from, then it would be troublesome. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.